I lay under a dark bridge in the Yinbei district of Magic City. All around me, the city was alive with neon lights and the roar of engines, but my world was just a thin, tattered quilt and a heavy green coat. I was thin, my bones practically poking through my skin, and the squeak of rats kept me company in the shadows. I was only 5 or 6 years old, but I had been wandering these streets for a year already. Morning light finally spilled into my hiding spot. I opened my eyes slowly, feeling a bit dazed. I had been having the most incredible dreams lately. A handsome man kept appearing in my head, teaching me things I never knew existed. He taught me calligraphy, chess, medicine, instruments, and painting. He even taught me something he called cultivation. Just last night, he told me he wanted me to be his apprentice. It was strange. In the dream, I learned everything instantly. Why is it so clear? I mumbled in my high, childish voice. My stomach growled loudly, interrupting my thoughts. I gave a silly little smile. It was time to go to work. I crawled to the back of the bridge hole and pulled out a small plate and a piece of paper I kept hidden under my makeshift bed. I tiptoed out into the busy morning air. Yinbei was bustling. Vendors were setting up stalls, and the streets were flooding with people. Nearby, 2 students were walking toward school. The girl, Lin Xiaoxiao, was being teased by her friend, Yi Xing, for walking too fast. She pouted, but suddenly she stopped dead in her eyes, staring at a spot near a pancake stall. Don't even think about it, Yi Xing sighed, thinking she wanted more food. Didn't you just eat breakfast? But Lin Xiaoxiao wasn't looking at the food. She pulled him over to a small patch of empty ground where I was sitting. I had placed my paper on the ground. It read, "Kind brothers, sisters, uncles, and aunts, can you give Xiaoke something to eat? Thank you." I looked up at them with big, hopeful eyes. My name is Xiaoku. I used to live with my grandfather, who collected scrap metal. We were poor and lived in a broken shack, but he loved me. He always gave me the best food he found and little toys he salvaged from the trash. But a year ago, he died of liver cancer. I stayed by his body, crying until I fell asleep, and the next day the police took him away. An old beggar eventually told me that if I wanted to survive, I had to start asking for help on the streets. "Can you give Xiaoke something to eat, pretty sister?" I asked. Lin Xiaoxiao looked at me, her eyes filling with pity. I knew I looked like a weak little bean sprout because I hadn't eaten well in so long, but my eyes were still bright. "Yi Xing, let's help him," she whispered. Yi Xing nodded and ran to buy 2 pancakes and a soda. "Here, Xiaoku, you must be starving. Where is your family?" I took the food and gave them a sweet smile, but my heart sank at his question. I looked down at my feet. My grandpa was taken by the police last year. They said he passed away. I don't know where my mom and dad are. I can't find them. Tears started to roll down my cheeks. My whole body trembled just thinking about Grandpa. Lin Xiaoxiao knelt down, trying to comfort me. "Why didn't the police take you to an orphanage? You wouldn't be hungry there." "I want to find my parents." I sobbed, my voice cracking. "I don't want to go to an orphanage. I have a mom and dad, so I ran away to find them." Lin Xiaoxiao couldn't take it anymore. She pulled a 50 yuan note from her pocket and dropped it into my plate. "Little brother, do you want to come home with me? You won't be hungry anymore." I stopped crying and looked at her, stunned. Just then, a sharp gust of wind swept through the street. The 50 yuan bill flew out of my plate and tumbled toward the busy road. "No," I cried. I couldn't let the kind sister's money blow away. I lunged for it, darting into the street. "Xiaoke, come back. It's dangerous," Yi Xing shouted, reaching for me, but missing. A silver Audi A6 was screaming down the road, heading straight for me. The driver slammed on his brakes, the tires screeching and leaving long black marks on the asphalt. The car stopped barely half a meter from my face. I stood there, clutching the crumpled bill, trembling with terror. The car door flew open and a fat man stepped out, his face red with rage. "You little brat, are you trying to scam me? Do you have eyes? This is a road, not a playground." He marched over and swung his foot, aiming a heavy kick at my ribs. Yi Xing dove in front of me, taking the blow to his back with a muffled groan. He stumbled but didn't fight back. "I'm sorry, sir," Yi Xing said, forcing a smile. "He's just a kid. Please, be the bigger person." "Why are you so mean?" Lin Xiaoxiao snapped at the man. "He's just a child. You're driving way too fast in a crowded area." The fat man looked like he wanted to slap her. A crowd began to gather, blocking the entire street. Horns started blaring behind us. A luxury lime green Maserati pulled up at the front of the traffic jam. A woman in glasses stepped out and walked toward the fat driver. "Sir, move your car," she said coldly. "Our CEO is in a hurry. If you delay her, I don't think you can afford the consequences." The crowd gasped. It was a limited edition Maserati, one of only 500 in the world. The license plate was all ones. This was the Wong family's car. The fat man turned pale. He spat on the ground, cursed his bad luck, and scrambled back into his Audi to drive away. The fat man didn't dare to cross the Wong family. Once the road cleared, the woman in glasses noticed me sitting on the ground. She looked at me with a flicker of pity, probably because I was so young and out here begging. She stepped forward, tucked 200 yuan into my hand, and turned back to the car without a word. "Xiao Yin, what happened?" a voice asked from the back seat. The woman who spoke was stunning. She wore a sharp business suit that hugged her curves, her pale skin glowing under the streetlights. Her long, light brown hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. She radiated an air of cold authority. This was Wang Siki, the CEO of the Wang Group and the seventh daughter of the Wang family. At only 22, she ruled her company with an iron fist. "President Wang, someone was making a scene," Xiao Yin explained as she got back in. "They said a little beggar was trying to scam people. I had them cleared out." Wang Siki nodded. As the car started, she rested her chin on her hand and stared out at the bustling streets. Her face remained as calm as still water. She wasn't thinking about me. She was thinking about business. "The Gao family set a clever trap," she whispered with a cold smirk. "If I had fallen for it, the company would have lost at least 200 million. Her eyes turned icy. If they wanted to cheat her, they had better be prepared to lose a limb. On the other side of the street, Lin Xiaoxiao and Yi Xing led me back to the sidewalk. "Xiao Ku, you have to be more careful," Lin Xiaoxiao scolded gently. "Stay right here, okay? Wait for me to finish school, and then I'll take you home." She gave me a few more instructions before she and Yi Xing realized they were about to be late. They hurried off toward their campus. I watched them go and stuck out my tongue. I didn't plan on staying. I packed up my paper sign in my bowl, grabbed my 2 pancakes, and disappeared into the shadows. A few minutes later, I was back under my bridge. I sat there happily munching on my pancakes and washing them down with a cold cola. A satisfied smile spread across my face. "I'm sorry, kind sister," I muttered to myself. "I can't go home with you. I have to find my own family. They must be looking for me too." I reached down and touched the blue jade pendant hanging around my neck. It had the name Xiao Ku carved into it. My grandfather told me this was the only thing my parents left for me. I believed that if they ever saw it, they would finally find me. After finishing my breakfast, I sat cross-legged on my old tattered quilt. It was time to practice the cultivation technique my master taught me. By the time I opened my eyes again, the sun was setting. I had been meditating all day. My body felt incredibly light and comfortable. I didn't realize it, but my frail frame was looking a bit healthier and my skin was becoming clearer. "I'm hungry again," I sighed. I wondered if Lin Xiaoxiao was looking for me, but I shook the thought away. I lifted my quilt and pulled out a small iron box. This was my treasure. I had saved most of the money I'd made begging over the past year. Inside were stacks of crumpled bills, ones, fives, tens, and even a few hundreds. I felt like a rich man. I picked out 13 yuan, closed the box, and hid it back in its spot. The city was coming alive as night fell. The lights were dazzling. I wandered through the streets, soaking in the energy. Some people looked at me with disgust and moved away. Others ignored me. A few gave me kind smiles. I was used to it all. I skipped toward the north side of the city. 10 minutes later, I reached a small food stall run by a kind old grandmother. Her prices were cheap, so she always had a crowd of workers around her. "Grandma, I want fried rice with pork. And a cola." I waved my 13 yuan at her. "Coming right up, Xiao Ku," she said, patting my head. "Did anyone give you money today?" A kind sister gave me 50, and a beautiful lady gave me 200. I beamed. "That much? People must really like you, little one. Eat up." I thanked her and took my food. The city at night was beautiful, but that beauty didn't belong to me. I walked past a KFC and stopped at the window. Inside, A family of 3 was laughing. A young girl about my age was eating a chicken leg, her face messy with grease. Her mother smiled and pinched her cheek affectionately. My mouth started watering before I could stop it. Suddenly, a loud thud knocked me to the ground. A heavy-set woman had crashed right into me. She wasn't hurt, but she immediately started screaming. "You little brat, what are you doing standing in the middle of the sidewalk?" People started staring. I felt small and humiliated. I scrambled to pick up my spilled food in my bowl, running away as fast as I could. I didn't notice that during the fall, my blue jade pendant had slipped from my neck and landed right at the woman's feet. I ran to a dark corner of a nearby park. Tears finally broke through. I curled into a ball, my body trembling. I didn't even dare to cry out loud. I was afraid someone would come over and yell at me again. "I'm just a kid nobody wants," I sobbed quietly. "Everyone else's parents. Why don't I?" After a long time, I wiped my face and sat up on a park bench. I reached for my chest out of habit. My heart stopped. It was empty. My jade pendant was gone. It was there when I left the bridge. It had to have fallen when I tripped. I stood up and sprinted back toward the KFC, weaving through the crowds. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, the fat woman walked into a jewelry store. She held my pendant out to the manager. "Give me a price," she demanded. "I know what it's worth." The manager inspected the blue stone. "It's decent quality, but it has a name carved on it. That lowers the resale value. I can give you 30,000 yuan. "Deal," the woman chirped. She couldn't believe her luck. That little beggar's trinket was worth a fortune. She walked out of the store with a wicked grin, checking her bank balance on her phone. Inside the shop, the manager was about to put the jade away when an old man walked in through the back door. "Master, what are you doing here?" the manager asked, bowing slightly. "Just checking in," the old man said. "Any interesting finds lately?" "Nothing special. Just some scrap gold and a few pieces of jade." The manager opened the safe and pulled out a tray of recent acquisitions to show him. The shop manager laid everything out on the table in front of his master. Most of it was junk, gold jewelry that wasn't old enough to be collectible, mediocre pearls, and very common jade. But then, the old man's eyes locked onto one specific piece in the tray. He picked up a jade pendant. It was a deep, translucent blue, smooth and delicate to the touch. He grabbed his magnifying glass and flashlight, hunched over the stone, and began to poke and prod at it. I didn't know it then, but his face went from confusion to absolute shock in seconds. "Imperial blue jade?" he muttered, his voice trembling. "How could a treasure like this show up here?" This old man was a director at the Zhujiang Group, a seasoned expert who lived and breathed gemstones. Most people would mistake this for common blue water jade, which is coarse and lifeless. But imperial blue jade is different. It's vibrant, warm, and said to have soul-nourishing properties. It was the kind of thing that didn't even have a price tag because you simply couldn't find it on the market. He flipped the pendant over. There, carved into the back, were 2 words, Shao Ku. The brushwork was powerful, like a soaring dragon. It was clearly the work of a world-class master. The old man went silent. He knew exactly what this meant. Whoever owned this pendant had to be someone of immense wealth and transcendent status. "Master," the shop manager asked, oblivious. "How should we handle this piece? We can probably get a good price for it, right?" The old man whirled around and glared at him, his face red with anger. "You fool, do you have any idea how precious this is? A tiny shard of this is worth more than your life. This belongs to someone important. Do you really dare to touch it?" The manager's head spun. He felt wronged, but he stayed quiet. The old man didn't wait. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number immediately. "Hey, Oldley," he said into the phone. "I have a piece of imperial blue jade here. What do I do?" "Imperial blue jade? Send me photos. Now," the voice on the other end barked. A few blocks away, in the executive office of the Tianyu Group, a subsidiary of the massive Wang Corporation, a man named Li Yishan nearly cursed out loud. He knew this pendant. 6 years ago, a piece of imperial blue jade half this size appeared at a Shanghai auction. The bidding hit 100 million yuan in 60 seconds. The Wang family had bought it to carve a gift for their unborn grandson. Not long after, the young master of the Wang family vanished mysteriously, and the jade went with him. Li Yishan didn't waste a second. He called the president. The news climbed the corporate ladder like wildfire. At that moment, in a high-level board meeting at the Gao Group, Wang Siki was facing off against Gao Jijun. She sat with her chin in her hand, tapping the table rhythmically. "I won't give up the Xianan district," she said coldly. "Your family lacks sincerity. There's no need to cooperate." Suddenly, her assistant, Xiao Lian, rushed in. She leaned down and whispered in Wang Siki's ear. Wang Siki bolted upright. She ignored the executives, walked out of the room, and grabbed her phone. A piece of imperial blue jade with the name Xiao Ku appeared tonight in a jewelry shop in the Yinbei district, the director reported. Wang Siki's hand shook as she held the phone. Her cold eyes softened, flooded with a mix of excitement, hope, and pure joy. She opened the email and looked at the photos over and over again. "Find the location of that pendant now," she commanded, her voice sharp. "Order every subsidiary of the Wang Group to Yinbei. Look for a child around 6 years old who recognizes this jade. Get the shop's surveillance footage. Contact the Yinbei police. I want every camera in the district checked. Find my son." Xiao Lian scrambled to execute the orders. Wang Siki sat in her car, rubbing her temples, her heart racing. That night, the city of Shanghai began to move. Under the surface, a massive search was underway. Employees, doctors, teachers, shopkeepers, police officers, even military patrols were all looking for something. Police cars raced through the streets. Missing person flyers were plastered on every corner. People on the street were confused until they saw the reward: 20,000 yuan for a lead and 200,000 for finding him. The city went into a frenzy. It was a total carpet search. Nobody was going to sleep that night. While the world turned upside down looking for me, I was curled up under a bridge. I lay on a tattered quilt, staring blankly at the concrete ceiling of the bridge. My eyes were hollow. I had lost my most precious possession, the only thing my parents left me. The pain filled my tiny heart. Next to me sat an untouched lunchbox and a warm soda. Eventually, my eyes drifted shut, and I fell into a deep sleep. Good disciple, Xiaoku. I opened my eyes to a world of shimmering gold. A handsome, solemn man was sitting cross-legged, floating in midair. "Master," I chirped. "You came to play." I loved seeing him. Every time I studied with him in my dreams, I felt happy and strong. But then I remembered. "Master, my jade pendant is gone. My mom and dad will never find me now." I felt like crying again as I told him everything that happened. The man listened patiently and smiled. He beckoned me closer. "Little one, do you want to change your life? Do you want to stop begging?" "Of course," I said, "but I don't know how." "Then I will tell you. Practice well. When you become strong, you can do anything. Your talent is high, and you've learned everything I've taught you. These skills are yours now. But I have to leave you for a while." I froze, wanting to ask why, but he pressed a finger to my forehead. A flood of profound knowledge poured into my brain. My body moved on its own, sitting cross-legged as I closed my eyes. "Little guy," he whispered, "don't disappoint me next time we meet." The next morning, the sound of car horns pulled me back to reality. A gentle breeze brushed over me. I rubbed my eyes and stretched. "Wow," I whispered. "I feel amazing." My body felt powerful and full of energy. My head was clear. I remembered what Master told me about cultivation, the 9 realms, starting with chi refining. I had just stepped into the first stage. My body had been completely rebuilt by spiritual energy. Then I smelled something. Ugh, what is that? I looked down and saw a layer of black, foul-smelling gunk covering my skin. It was gross. I ran to the nearby river, stripped off my rags, and dived in. 10 minutes later, I climbed out and put my clothes back on. I noticed my skin was whiter, and I wasn't as skinny as before. I actually had a little bit of muscle. "I'm not going to beg today," I decided, clutching the few coins I had left. "I have to find my pendant." I grabbed my things and left the bridge. Just moments after I walked away, 2 men carrying flyers stepped into the shadows where I had been sleeping. "Do we really need to post missing person flyers in a place like this?" one of the men asked. "Stop complaining," the other snapped. "The boss said to be thorough. Don't miss a single spot. This area is under our company's direct responsibility." "Is it really that serious? I haven't slept all night." "Are you an idiot, Kaidi? This order came from the boss of our boss's boss. If we mess this up, we're fired. I didn't hear the rest of their conversation. I was already walking down the street, stuffing my face with meat buns. They tasted incredible. People were staring at me like I was some kind of competitive eater, but I didn't care. I was starving. Something felt different today. The streets were crawling with police officers. I walked slowly, watching them patrol the sidewalks in their crisp uniforms. They looked sharp, scanning the crowds with intense focus. Suddenly, a faint, pitiful whimper drifted from a nearby alleyway. Woof, woof. I stopped. It sounded so sad. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ducked into the shadows of the alley to see what was going on. Just as I vanished into the darkness, a police officer in a passing car glanced over. "Was there a kid over there just now?" he muttered. "Where'd he go?" He rubbed his eyes and sighed. "Man, I've been working all night. I must be seeing things." He shook his head and drove on, continuing his search for any suspicious-looking boys. The word was out. A notification had been sent to every officer. Find the boy from the Wong family. Rumor had it that whoever found him would get a double promotion instantly. Across the city, in the heart of the Tianshui district, stood the Wong Group headquarters. It was a massive, towering skyscraper that cost hundreds of millions just to build. Inside, the decor was minimalist, not flashy, but radiating pure elegance and power. "President Wong, the jade pendant has been recovered," a woman named Xiao Yin said, placing a wooden box on the desk. "A woman sold it to a shop last night. I've already downloaded the security footage. We tracked her movements back to a McDonald's at number 136 Yinbei District. That's where she found it." Xiao Yin opened her laptop and hit play. Wang Siki opened the wooden box first. Inside lay a warm, translucent jade pendant. She snapped the box shut and placed it in the heavy safe behind her desk. "Play the video," she commanded. The screen flickered to life. It showed a small boy leaning against a window, peering into the restaurant. A large, heavy-set woman walked by and slammed into him. The boy was knocked to the ground, and the jade pendant tumbled out of his pocket. "Stop," Wang Siki said. She stared at the boy on the screen. He looked about 5 or 6 years old. He was thin, painfully so, and dressed in literal rags. He looked like a stiff breeze could knock him over. "Find him," Wang Siki said, her voice cold and flat. A terrifying, dominant aura began to radiate from her. "Bring him to me. Anyone who dares to bully my younger brother. Tell that woman to get out of this city. Actually, make sure she's finished." Xiao Lian shivered. She had never seen the usually calm President Wang this angry. The video continued. The woman on screen was screaming insults at the boy before he finally turned and ran away. Wang Siki's teeth ground together so loudly Xiao Lian could hear it. "Get a sketch artist," Wang Siki ordered. "Draw his portrait and send it to every search team immediately. Focus all efforts on the area around that McDonald's. I'm going there myself." "Yes, President Wang." Back in the alley, I followed the whimpering until I found a tiny dog huddled next to a pile of trash. It was barely a few inches tall, skinny, and covered in dirty white fur. Its little paws were frantically digging through the garbage, looking for a scrap of food. I blinked. I could feel something coming from the dog. Spiritual energy? Now that I had entered the chi refining stage, I was sensitive to it. This wasn't just a normal stray. The puppy heard me and looked up. We locked eyes. Suddenly, its tail started wagging like crazy. It began circling my legs, its eyes glued to the meat bun in my hand. "Are you hungry?" I asked. "Woof." I placed the bun on the ground. The little white dog lunged at it, devouring it in seconds. "Don't you have anyone either?" I whispered, reaching out to pet its matted fur. "No mom or dad. I guess we're the same, you and I." The dog finished the bun and looked up at me expectantly. I needed to get moving to find my jade, so I turned to leave. After a few steps, a sharp bark stopped me. I looked back. The puppy was standing there, watching me. "I have to go," I said. "Do you want to come with me?" "Woof." "All right then. We're friends now. Since you're so white, I'll call you Little Black." The dog gave me a look of pure confusion, but then it wagged its tail and jumped into my arms. I tucked him against my chest and headed toward the McDonald's. "Hey, Little Black," I murmured as I walked. "Why are we so alike? I'm all alone, and you were living like a stray." Suddenly, Two men blocked my path. I looked up and froze. They were soldiers in camouflage uniforms, staring right at me. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. "Mr. Soldier, I didn't do anything wrong," I stammered. "I'm just going to the McDonald's to find something." The two soldiers ignored my plea and pulled out a phone, comparing my face to a photo on the screen. Once they were sure, one of them knelt down and patted my head. I noticed a handgun holstered at his waist and flinched. "Don't be scared, kid," he said gently. "I just want to ask if you recognize this." He showed me a photo. It was a picture of a blue-purple jade pendant. My heart leaped. "That's mine," I cried. "I lost it. Can I have it back? It's really important to me. Please." The two soldiers exchanged a look and smiled. "Is your name Xiaoku? Are you almost 6 years old?" I nodded slowly. How did they know my name? I had never seen these men in my life. One of the soldiers tapped his radio. "Notify all units. Target located. Converge on Sunshine Avenue immediately. Over." "Don't worry," the soldier told me. "We aren't the bad guys." Within minutes, the entire street transformed. Dozens of soldiers marched towards Sunshine Avenue. Police cars swerved into the intersection, sirens blaring as they cleared the crowds and diverted traffic. Every traffic light in the area turned red. Officers began stringing up yellow police tape, sealing off the block. I was terrified. Over 100 soldiers and police officers were surrounding me, and the number was growing by the second. High above, the commander of the Yenbei military region was on a secure line. "General, we've found the young master. What are your orders?" "Keep him safe," a voice replied. "Let the Wang family handle the rest." The commander hung up, looking thoughtful. This Wang family, they truly are mysterious. Back at the Wang group, Xiao Lian rushed into the office. "President Wang, the young master has been found. He's at the location now. Move out," Wang Siki said. A fleet of luxury cars roared out of the underground garage. In the middle of the cordoned-off street, I stood there trembling, clutching Little Black tightly. "Mr. Soldier, can I go now? I have things to do," I said weakly. "You can't leave yet, young master," the soldier replied. "Your family is coming to get you." "But I don't have a family," I argued. "My grandpa passed away. You must have the wrong person." Suddenly, the roar of high-performance engines filled the air. A line of black Cullinans sped into the area, led by a sleek Maserati. The soldiers snapped to attention and opened the car door. "Miss Wang," they said respectfully. A swarm of bodyguards in black suits poured out of the other cars, standing like a wall of stone. I watched, my heart thumping against my ribs, as a woman stepped out of the Maserati. First, I saw a pair of long, elegant legs. She was wearing a sharp black uniform that made her look both mysterious and incredibly powerful. She stood nearly 5'7", and her custom high heels made her look even taller and more commanding. She looked straight at me. Her face was exquisite. Even without a drop of makeup, she was the kind of woman who could make any man stop in his tracks. Wang Siki stared at me. Her high heels clicked against the pavement as she walked toward me, step by step. I watched her mesmerized. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She looked incredibly wealthy, too. She stopped right in front of me. Her eyes weren't cold like the other rich people I'd met. They were full of tenderness and a deep, aching sadness. I knew what I looked like to her. I was small, thin, and covered in filth. This was the first time she was seeing her brother, and I could tell she was imagining all the meals I'd missed and the rags I'd been forced to wear. Her nose reddened, and her eyes grew misty. My family had been searching for me for years. Today, they finally found me. "Xiaoku," she said, her voice trembling. She crouched down and forced a small, shaky smile. "Come to your sister." I took a step back, clutching Little Black. I don't have a sister. I don't know you. You have the wrong person. I'm sorry. I wasn't lying. I didn't know her. Someone this rich and powerful would surely despise a street kid like me. Every other wealthy person I'd encountered looked at me with nothing but disgust. "I am your sister," she insisted. "Your name is Wang Xiaoku. 5 years ago, you were swapped at the hospital. By the time we realized it, it was too late." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a jade pendant. "Our parents had this made specifically for you." She leaned in and gently hung the pendant around my neck. I froze. Wang Xiaoku. That was my name. I had a family. I had a beautiful sister. It all felt like a dream, but looking at the genuine love in her eyes, I started to believe her. Then, a wave of shame hit me. I looked at my dirty hands and torn clothes. Would she hate me once she realized how messy I was? Everyone can leave now, Wang Siki commanded. She looked at her assistant. Xiaolian, find a clothing store nearby. The soldiers and bodyguards dispersed instantly. Within seconds, only a few people remained. Wang Siki stood up and reached for my hand, but then she noticed the scruffy dog in my arms. Xiaoku, is this your pet? I stroked Little Black's head and shook my head. He's my friend. His name is Little Black. He's very good. A small smile played on her lips. A white dog named Little Black. She probably thought I had a funny way of naming things. Come with me, she said softly. I want to take you somewhere. Okay. I nodded obediently. But when we reached the car, I hesitated. It was a massive, luxurious SUV. It looked like it cost more than 1,000 houses. I didn't want to get it dirty. Wang Siki saw my hesitation. She pulled me inside and sat me next to her. Don't be afraid. I would never be disgusted by you. You're my little treasure. She reached over and pinched my cheek gently. Up in the driver's seat, Xiaolian looked shocked. Apparently, my sister was a total germaphobe who usually lost her temper over a speck of dust. But with me, she didn't seem to care at all. Our motorcade roared through the streets of Yanbei. People stopped and stared as the line of Cullinans passed by. I heard people whispering about the Maserati in the lead, saying it was a limited edition worth tens of millions. They recognized my sister immediately, the famous CEO of the Wang family. Inside the car, I sat as stiff as a board. I was happy, but I didn't know what to say. Can you tell me about your life? She asked. I started talking. I told her about my grandpa and how I ended up on the streets after he passed. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I told her about the kind strangers who gave me food and toys, and how the city guards used to chase me away. She listened quietly. I was only 5 years and 9 months old. Most kids my age were playing with toys and being pampered. I had been fighting to survive. The car eventually pulled over in front of a high-end clothing store. We stepped out under the envious glares of the crowd. A sharp-eyed saleswoman rushed over, bowing deeply. She saw my sister's designer clothes and cold aura and clearly saw a golden opportunity for a massive commission. Give my brother some clothes, Wang Siki said. The saleswoman looked at me, her expression turning weird. I was covered in dirt and rags. I didn't look like a rich lady's brother. What are you staring at? Wang Siki's voice turned icy. Do you not want to work? Get someone else to help us. The woman froze, realized she'd messed up, and stood there in shock as a younger salesgirl stepped up to lead us to the children's section. The new girl started to point out trendy items, but my sister cut her off. That one, those 2 sets, and that entire row. Wrap them all up. The girl gasped. I tugged on my sister's sleeve, my eyes wide. Sister, I can't wear that many clothes. 1 set is enough. She rubbed my head affectionately. I have plenty of money, Xiaoku. I could buy you 10,000 sets. Just let her scan the card. The salesgirl was beaming. This one sale was going to put her at the top of the leaderboard. She quickly totaled it up, over 30,000 yuan for 20 outfits. As we walked out, I saw the first saleswoman looking like she wanted to bite through her own teeth in regret. Next, we went to a high-end bathhouse. My sister sent 3 bodyguards to help me get cleaned up while she took a video meeting in a private VIP room. When I finally came out, I felt like a different person. I had a fresh haircut and new clothes. My skin felt smooth and clean, smelling like milk and soap. The spiritual energy I'd been cultivating had flushed the toxins out of my body, making my eyes brighter and my face clearer. I looked adorable. Oh my God, Xiaolian whispered when she saw me. The young master is so handsome. She looked at the 3 bodyguards, who were all dripping with sweat. What happened to you 3? Did you fall in the bath? They looked at each other, exhausted. It was just really humid in there, one lied. In reality, they had spent the last hour scrubbing me. I only weighed 40 pounds, but they had managed to scrub off a literal pound of filth. It was more exhausting than running a marathon. I watched the 3 bodyguards trudge downstairs, looking like they'd just fought a war. It was embarrassing, really. They were elite professionals, but a 5-year-old's bath time had completely defeated them. It was already noon. I skipped into the VIP room, feeling lighter than air. My sister, Wang Siki, was in the middle of a serious video conference with her top executives. She looked cold and imposing until she saw me. Beside her, Xiao Yin broke into a soft smile. But it was my sister's reaction that stunned everyone. The Iceberg CEO actually smiled. On the screen, the high-level managers looked like they'd seen a ghost. Some of them probably thought she'd finally fallen in love. "That's all for today," she said, her voice snapping back to its professional edge. "We'll discuss the Xi'an district planning tomorrow morning." She clicked the meeting shut. I could only imagine the awkward silence left in that boardroom. "Xiao Ku, come sit by me," she said, beckoning with a slender hand. I climbed up next to her, smelling the faint scent of flowers on her skin. It was so different from the heavy, suffocating perfume of the women I'd encountered on the streets. "Sister, I'm all clean now," I chirped. She pinched my cheek, her eyes full of sweetness. For the first time, I truly felt what it was like to have family. I wasn't a stray anymore. Just then, Xiao Yin walked in carrying a fluffy white ball of fur. It was my dog. He struggled in her arms, desperate to get to me. "President Wang, Little Black is clean," Xiao Yin said. We also had someone come by to give him his vaccinations. She and my sister shared a look of pure confusion. My dog was Snow White, yet I insisted on calling him Little Black. I guess it was my own little way of being rebellious. Xiao Yin set him down, and he zoomed straight to my feet, licking me until I burst out laughing. "Xiao Ku," my sister said tentatively. "Do you want to change his name? He's so white now. How about Little White?" I hugged him tight and shook my head. "No, Little Black sounds cooler." She sighed, running her fingers through my hair. She couldn't say no to me. She pulled me close to take some photos, and I just looked at the camera with wide, innocent eyes. She immediately sent them to a group chat. My phone wasn't buzzing, but hers was exploding. She showed me the messages from my other sisters. "Is my brother cute?" she had typed. The replies flew in. "My brother? He's my little treasure," one named Wang Xinru wrote. "He's so thin," another named Yingying added. "Let me pick him up. I'll feed him until he's nice and chubby." "Third sister, you're talking like you're raising a pig," when you chimed in. "I should take care of him. I have more free time." Then there was Wang Ying, a doctor. "He's likely malnourished. You guys don't know how to care for a child. I'll come home after my medical conference." Even Lele, a global superstar, said she was ending her tour early just to pinch my cheeks. I stared at the screen, my mouth forming an O shape. "I have 8 sisters." "That's right," she laughed. "I'm the 7th, so call me 7th sister." She spent the next few minutes teaching me everyone's names. I memorized them quickly. I had a family now. A big one. "What do you want for lunch, Xiaoko?" I didn't even have to think. "Fried chicken wings. And drumsticks. And cola and burgers." Tap. Her finger flicked my forehead gently. "No, that's junk food. It's bad for you." I pouted, looking down at my feet. I'd seen a girl eating a big drumstick yesterday, and it looked like the most delicious thing in the world. She saw my face and melted. "Fine, just this once. But you have to promise not to make it a habit." "Yay, 7th sister is the best." I squeezed Little Black so hard, he let out a tiny yelp. 15 minutes later, a luxury car pulled up to a fast food place. The manager was already waiting outside, bowing and scraping. Inside, the place was eerily quiet. Trays of golden chicken and cold cola were set before us, but the restaurant was empty. "7th sister, why is no one else eating?" Xiao Lian giggled. "The president booked the whole place, Xiaoko. People know this is junk food," my sister lied smoothly. "They're afraid of getting stomach aches, so they stayed away." The manager in the corner looked like he wanted to cry. His restaurant was usually packed, but I guess money talks. I grabbed a drumstick and took a massive bite. It was crispy, juicy, and perfect. I forgot all my manners. I had a wing in one hand and a cola in the other, my face getting covered in grease. "Slow down, there's plenty," she said, smiling as she wiped my chin. She took another photo for the sisters group chat, and then turned her phone off to ignore the chaos. "Sister, try it. It's so good." I held out a drumstick to her. Xiao Lian looked horrified. My sister hated grease. No one dared to bring fried food into her office. But to Xiao Lian's absolute shock, my sister put on a disposable glove, took the chicken, and actually took a bite. "Is it good?" I asked. "Can I eat this every day?" "No," she said firmly. Okay, then I'll just eat enough today to last me for the next week. She burst out laughing. That's not how it works, you little goof. I ate until my stomach was a round ball. Even little Black, hiding under the table, was stuffed. But looking at the leftovers, my heart sank. I hated wasting food. I'd spent too many nights hungry to just leave it behind. My sister saw the look in my eyes. She knew where it came from. Don't worry, she whispered. We'll pack it up and take it home. I felt better then. As we walked out, I tugged on her hand. Sister, can we stop by my old place first? I have some things I need to get before we go to your house. Xiao Lian drove the car through a maze of winding roads, following my directions. We eventually pulled up to a stone bridge on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't a large bridge, maybe 20 meters long, and it looked ancient. People rarely walked across it, and cars almost never passed by. I hopped out of the car and led my sister and Xiao Lian toward the edge. They looked around, confused. There was nothing here but the road and a sidewalk. Where do you live, little brother? My sister asked. Her voice was filled with doubt. Follow me, seven sister, I shouted. I ran to the side of the bridge where a set of steep stairs led down toward the river. The steps were slippery and worn smooth from years of rain and neglect. If you weren't careful, especially at night, you'd tumble straight down into the water. It was a scary thought, but I had done it 1,000 times. My sister followed me, her high heels clicking precariously on the stone. Xiao Lian stayed close behind her, looking nervous. When we reached the bottom, I ran over to a pile of junk in the shadows. I knelt by a tattered, filthy quilt and started digging through the layers. My sister stood there, frozen. I could see the shock on her face. To her, this wasn't a home, it was a nightmare. A single torn blanket and a few rags scattered on the dirt. This was where I had survived for a year. Her eyes welled up with tears. I didn't see it, but her heart was breaking. She vowed right then that whoever had caused me to end up here would pay a bloody price. Sister, I'm ready. I turned around with a big grin. I was clutching a small, rusted iron box. My sister blinked back her tears and stepped forward, curious about what I was holding so tightly. I carefully pried the lid open. Inside was a messy pile of small bills and loose change. Xiao Lian glanced over and estimated it was about 400 yuan. To me, it was a fortune. I looked up at my sister like a proud general showing off his spoils of war. She didn't care about the money. She just pulled me into a tight, trembling hug. My brave little brother is so amazing, she whispered, her voice shaking. From now on, I won't let you suffer ever again. We left the bridge hole behind. The old quilt stayed there, the only proof that a child had once called that dark place home. We got back into the Maserati and started driving. I pressed my face against the window, watching the world change. The scenery shifted from broken outskirts to towering, gleaming skyscrapers. Everything looked so much more prosperous here. 20 minutes later, we pulled into a massive estate. Lush greenery surrounded us, and in the center stood several stylish, grand villas. The car stopped right in front of the biggest one. Wow, is this our home, sister? It's huge. I jumped out, still clutching little Black and my iron box. My sister smiled and took my hand. This is our home. The whole estate belongs to us. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. It turned out my sister was a legendary rich woman. As we walked inside, a woman in a neat uniform approached us. She was the housekeeper, Auntie Lon. She had served the Wong family for over 10 years and had watched my sisters grow up. Welcome back, miss, she said warmly. I'll have lunch prepared immediately. No need, Auntie Lon, my sister replied. We've already eaten. Just get a room ready for my brother. Decorate it well. Auntie Lon looked at me with tender eyes. Heaven has eyes. The young master is finally home. I'll get the servants on it right away. The interior of the villa was incredible. It was elegant and spacious, filled with high-end furniture and gadgets I didn't even recognize. My sister knelt down and cupped my face. I have some work to finish, okay? Stay here and play. I'll have someone stay with you. She assigned a young maid to look after me while she went upstairs to handle business for the Wong group. Little Black and I began to explore. The maid followed us, pointing out the different areas, the entertainment zone, the guest lounge, and the various rooms. Little Black was being very well behaved, just lounging in my arms. I stopped in front of a massive TV. I'd seen these in store windows before. A small one cost 6,000 yuan. This one was built into the wall and was 5 times bigger. I guessed it cost maybe 20,000. I didn't realize it was actually a luxury model worth 120,000. Young master, would you like to watch TV? The maid asked. I nodded and hopped onto the soft sofa. I let Little Black down so he could sniff around. The maid turned on the TV and pulled up a list of thousands of cartoons. I eventually picked one and got completely sucked in. She brought me a fruit platter and drinks, and I sat there happily munching on strawberries. While I was distracted, Little Black wandered off. The front door wasn't locked, just pushed shut. He nudged it open and slipped out into the yard. He barked happily, rolling in the grass and exploring the edge of the estate. Suddenly, an angry shout rang out near the perimeter. Where did this mangy stray come from? A man who was sweeping the grounds glared at Little Black. My dog had dug a small hole in the perfectly manicured lawn, and the man was furious. He chased Little Black, but the dog was fast. You little beast. When I catch you, I'm going to skin you alive. Eventually, he cornered Little Black. He grabbed him by the legs, ignoring the dog's whimpering. He planned to throw him as far away from the estate as possible. As he reached the main gate, he ran into Annie Lawn. She was busy supervising servants who were carrying in boxes of teddy bears and toys for me. Hello, Auntie Lawn, the man said. She glanced at him and the dog in his hand. What's going on, Xiaolu? You look like a mess. A stray snuck into the garden, he said with a smirk. I'm taking it out so it doesn't bother the Mississippi. Auntie Lawn turned away, but then she froze. She spun back around and blocked his path. That dog, isn't that the young master's dog? What do you think you're doing? Xiaolu turned pale. He'd heard the missing young master had returned, and everyone had even received a 500 yuan bonus to celebrate. But no one told him the kid had brought a dog. Auntie Lawn snatched Little Black away from him, cradling the dog protectively. Auntie Lawn gently patted Little Black's head and looked at Xiaolu with a cold, piercing gaze. You wanted to throw him out? She asked, her voice dropping an octave. I think you're the one who wants to be thrown out. If the young master gets angry and the higher-ups find out, can you take responsibility for that? Cold sweat broke out on Xiaolu's forehead. He realized he was 1 second away from losing his job. Working for the Wang family was a dream. Even a simple gardener or cleaner could make over 10,000 yuan a month. People fought tooth and nail for these positions. He immediately bowed his head, stammering out apologies and claiming he didn't know. In the end, Auntie Lawn docked 1,000 yuan from his salary. He looked like he wanted to cry. I guess even a dog can have more power than a man in this house. Xiaolu went back to his post, dejected, to fix the hole in the lawn. 2 hours later, I was tired of watching TV. Auntie Lawn walked in carrying Little Black. Young master, she said warmly, your room is ready. Come and take a look. I still felt a bit awkward being called young master, but I didn't correct her. Thank you, Auntie Lawn, I said. My voice was soft and high-pitched, the way a 5-year-old should be. I could see her heart melting instantly. Older people always seem to have a soft spot for kids. We went up to the 2nd floor. She pointed to a room at the end of the hallway. That's yours, she said. As we walked, she pointed out other rooms. This one belongs to your father and mother. Your sister's room is on the 3rd floor. Are Mom and Dad not home? I asked. I really wanted to see them. I didn't have a single memory of my parents from the streets, but a part of me was terrified they wouldn't like me. The head of the house and the madam are in the north handling some business, Auntie Lawn explained. They won't be back for a while. She didn't tell me the truth, that my father was actually in the north quelling a rebellion, and that the situation in the northern war zone was incredibly tense. She pushed open the door, and my jaw dropped. It was a dream paradise. There were shelves full of toys, rows of action figures, and a bed so big and soft it looked like a cloud. The blankets were embroidered with cartoon characters. Wow, this is amazing, I cheered, diving onto the bed. It was bouncy and plush, 1,000,000 times better than the cold ground under the bridge. The smart AC hummed quietly, keeping the room at the perfect temperature. Are you satisfied, master? Auntie Lawn asked. If you need anything, just tell me. I love it. Thank you. Can I take a nap? I'm really sleepy. Of course. Rest well. If you need me, just press the button on the headboard. She smiled, closed the door softly, and whispered to herself about what a cute child I was. As soon as she was gone, I sat up and crossed my legs on the bed. Ever since this morning, I had felt something strange buzzing in my head. Now that I was alone, it was time to investigate. Since I had entered the chi refining stage, my senses were sharper. I closed my eyes and let my consciousness sink into my sea of consciousness, a mental space that normal people can't access. The space was about 20 square meters. In the center, 6 glowing orbs and a silver ring floated in the air. "Good disciple," a voice echoed through the space. It was my master. I looked around, confused, but he was nowhere to be seen. "When you enter this space, you will find the gifts I left for you. Practice hard. Do not disappoint me." He explained that the 6 orbs could only be opened by injecting spiritual energy. The ring was a spatial storage device with 9 seals. "I cannot let you grow only under my protection." His voice faded. "Remember, keep your skills a secret. A tree that stands taller than the forest is the first to be blown down by the wind." I listened intently. Once the silence returned, I walked toward the floating objects. The silver ring seemed alive. As soon as I touched it, it shrank to fit my ring finger perfectly. I tried to push my spiritual energy into the glowing orbs, but they didn't budge. I wasn't strong enough yet. I opened my eyes back in the room and looked at the ring. Master was really gone, but he had left me treasures. I sent a sliver of energy into the ring and gasped. The inside was as big as a basketball court. This was only the first of 9 seals. Inside were piles of items, and 3 more glowing orbs floated in the center. As soon as they felt my presence, the 3 orbs flew into my forehead. A massive wave of information crashed into my brain. I sat there for 15 minutes, digesting it all. When I finally exhaled, I realized I had just learned 3 legendary techniques: the Medicine King's secret code, the Heavenly Strategy, and a cultivation manual called the Chaos Heaven Melting Art. In an instant, I had become a master of medicine, forging, and every art form imaginable. I was probably the most capable 5-year-old on the planet. Seeing that it was still early, I closed my eyes and began to circulate my energy. Chi flowed into my small body, washing through my limbs before settling in my dantian. Time flew. By the time I stopped, the sky outside was painted in golden sunset hues. I felt refreshed, my energy at its peak. I hopped off the bed and sat at the desk. I grabbed a pen and paper and started writing. Even though I'd never been to school, my master had used a secret technique to plant the knowledge of writing deep in my memory. I had a problem, though. Cultivating normally was too slow. At this rate, it would take 15 days just to reach the middle stage of chi refining. I needed pills to speed things up. I wrote down a recipe for chi gathering pills. I had the herbs in my ring, but I needed a furnace to refine them. Where on earth was I going to find a pill furnace in a modern city? A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. "Young master, dinner is ready. Please come down." I followed Annie Lawn downstairs. I was starving. My memory told me that once I reached the foundation establishment stage, I wouldn't need to eat or drink anymore. But for now, I just wanted a full stomach. My sister, Wang Siki, was already at the table. She looked tired from a long day at the office, but she brightened up the moment she saw me. She pulled me into the seat next to her. The table was massive, and it was covered in over a dozen dishes: braised ribs, sweet and sour fish, spicy chicken, and tofu. I was stunned. Was she trying to feed me to death on my first day? "Sister, I can't eat all this," I whispered, tugging on her sleeve. She laughed and placed a piece of fish in my bowl. "Silly boy, I don't expect you to eat it all. Just eat until you're full. But what happens to the rest? Do we throw it away?" I asked, worried about the waste. "The staff will take care of it," she reassured me. "It won't go to waste." I felt a weight lift off my chest. With my mind at ease, my appetite came roaring back, and I started to eat. After tasting a few dishes, I couldn't stop. The flavors were incredible, and my stomach was full before I knew it. To me, eating like this was the ultimate luxury. Throughout the meal, my sister hardly ate a bite. She just watched me with a doting smile, her eyes full of warmth. "Xiao Ku," she said softly, "your 6th birthday is coming up in 3 months." I rubbed my bulging belly and tilted my head. I didn't know when my birthday was. Back in Yanbei, Grandpa didn't know either. I had never celebrated a birthday in my life. What was I even supposed to do? My sister took a silk handkerchief and gently wiped the corner of my mouth. Your birthday is October 9th. That's less than 2 months away. On your birthday, you get to eat a big cake, wear new clothes, and make a wish. I tried to imagine it. Sister, what does cake taste like? It's soft and sweet, she told me. Just like eating a cloud. After dinner, she snuck a photo of me and sent it to a group chat. My other sisters were already losing their minds. My second sister, Wang Wenya, said she was coming home in a few days and asked if we should tell Mom and Dad. Lele replied that our parents cried every time they mentioned me, so this news would make them explode with joy. Then there was Shinru, who insisted she was coming home too, just to see me. At that moment, at the Kyoto International Stadium, a girl in a white dress was staring at her phone and giggling. She had skin like milk and features so perfect, she looked like a princess from a fairy tale. This was Wang Shinru, the nation's sweetheart, a top-tier actress with the most followers on social media. It was the night of her massive fan meeting. The host whipped the crowd into a frenzy, and Shinru walked onto the stage to a deafening roar of "Goddess" and "I love you." She bowed gracefully to the tens of thousands of fans, sang her hit songs, and thanked everyone for coming. But as the event neared its end, she made a shocking announcement. "I know many of you are excited about my Hollywood collaboration next month," she said into the mic. "But I'm sorry to say I won't be participating in that movie." The crowd went wild with confusion. This movie was her shot at a global grand slam. "I'm stepping back because my long-lost brother has finally come home," she explained with a sweet smile. "I want to spend time with him. I hope you all understand." The fans melted. They weren't even mad. They were just jealous of me. While Shinru was rushing backstage to finish her work so she could see me, my other sister, Wang Wenya, was finishing a meeting at a research center in America. She told a room full of world-class professors that she was heading back to China to teach at Kyoto University. They couldn't believe she'd take such a low position, but she didn't care. She booked her flight immediately. Back at the villa, I went to check on Little Black. Auntie Lon had set him up in a corner near the entrance with a high-end doghouse and a bowl full of premium food. Honestly, that doghouse was nicer than the place I used to live. It had a soft cushion and even a tiny air conditioner. After playing with the dog, my sister took me back to my room and told me to get ready for bed before she went upstairs to shower. This was my chance. I still needed those pills. I tucked my recipe into my pocket and crept downstairs. Auntie Lon was cleaning up. "Young master, where are you going?" "I want to see the kitchen," I said, grabbing her hand and acting as cute as possible. I needed to see if they had anything I could use as a furnace. She couldn't resist my puppy dog eyes and led me inside. The kitchen was massive, like something in a five-star hotel. I asked her about the pots and pans, but then I pointed at the rice cooker. She explained how it worked. You just put things in, add water, and set the timer. I memorized everything. As soon as she turned her back, I slipped back into the kitchen and locked the door. I had to make the chi-gathering pills tonight. My cultivation was just too slow. I didn't have a furnace, so the rice cooker would have to do. I climbed onto a stool so I could reach the counter. With a flick of my wrist, I pulled the herbs from my storage ring. Ginseng, dragon whisker, tiger tail flower, and several others. 12 ingredients in total. I tossed them in, added some rootless water, and started the timer. I pressed my hands against the cooker, releasing a thin stream of spiritual energy to monitor the reaction inside. I watched as the herbs melted into liquid and the essence began to separate. This was the hard part. Every herb had a different melting point. I had to fuse them perfectly using my chi. I focused hard, my face grim. The essence started to swirl together. Then, 15 minutes later, boom. The explosion rocked the kitchen. The glass windows rattled in their frames. Outside, the maids screamed and gathered around Auntie Lon. My sister, Wang Siki, came running down the stairs in her bathrobe, her hair still wet. She had been looking for me in my room when the blast happened. "Auntie Lon, what happened? Did something explode?" she shouted. "I don't know," Auntie Lon cried. "I tried to go in, but the smoke is too thick." They pushed the door open cautiously. Through the thick, gray clouds of smoke and the mess of shattered plastic, they saw me standing on my stool, covered in soot, staring blankly at the remains of the rice cooker. Through the swirling gray smoke, the maids and Auntie Lon saw a small figure emerge. I stood there on my stool, my face covered in soot and my hair singed at the tips. I was completely black from the blast. I looked at them and let out an awkward grin, my teeth shining bright white against my charred skin like a beacon in the night. Sister Chi, Auntie Lon. The rice cooker exploded, I explained sheepishly. Sure enough, they looked over and saw the rice cooker had blossomed like a piece of scrap metal. The lid had flown all the way onto the top shelf. Wang Siki's mouth twitched as she looked at the blackened machine and then back at me. My brother really has a talent for cooking, she muttered, though her voice quickly turned stern. Why were you using a rice cooker for this? It's dangerous. She was terrified I would blow up the whole kitchen next time. She rushed over, checking me head to toe for injuries. To her, a broken appliance was nothing, but a scratch on me was a disaster. I hung my head, looking exactly like a child who knew he'd messed up. I wanted to learn how to cook for you, sister, I whispered. A wave of warmth rushed through Wang Siki's heart. She couldn't stay mad when I was trying to do something so sweet. The chaos ended quickly. Auntie Lon stayed behind to clean up the wreckage while my sister took me upstairs for a hot bath. Back in my room, dressed in fresh pajamas, I let out a secret smile. That was a close call. My master had warned me never to tell anyone about my cultivation, and I had almost been caught red-handed. Meanwhile, downstairs, Auntie Lon frowned as she picked up a stained piece of paper from the floor. It was the pill recipe I had written, but the ink was too smudged to read. I closed my curtains, jumped onto the bed, and carefully pulled the pills from my storage ring. The impact of the pill formation had been so strong it blew the cooker apart, but luckily, the medicine survived. I counted them. 4 round, glowing pills. I wasn't happy. My master said one batch should yield 10 pills. Why did I only get 4? If any professional alchemist had heard my thoughts, they would have spit blood in rage. I was a 5-year-old using a rice cooker for the first time, and I had actually succeeded in making 4 high-grade pills. I tucked 3 away and swallowed 1. It turned into a stream of heat that surged into my stomach. I felt the spiritual energy rampaging through my body, and I immediately began to meditate to absorb it. I spent the entire night in a trance. When dawn broke, I opened my eyes feeling refreshed. In just one night, my dantian was 20% full. At this rate, I'd reached the middle stage of chi refining in a week. Young master, time to get up. Auntie Lon called from the door. I hopped into my slippers and ran to open it. Morning, Auntie Lon. As she helped me wash up, I asked where my sister was. She told me Sister Chi was already downstairs waiting for breakfast. When I got to the dining room, Wang Siki was dressed in a sharp black business suit, looking every bit the cold, powerful CEO. Don't stay home today, Xiaoku. Come to the office with me, she said. I nodded obediently. After saying goodbye to Little Black, we headed out. We arrived at the Wang Group headquarters in the Tianshui district. When we stepped out of the car, every employee we passed bowed and greeted her. I looked up at the massive skyscraper. Sister Chi, is this whole building yours? She smiled playfully. Actually, it's yours. You're the boss here. We went up to the top floor. Inside her office, my sister looked at her assistant, Xiao Lian, and started giving orders. Xiao Lian, 3 things today. First, get Xiao Ku's identity documents sorted. Second, buy him a phone. Third, get him some more clothes. Oh, and get him that cake he wanted yesterday. Xiao Lian looked stunned. She was a top-tier executive secretary, but now she felt more like a nanny. Still, she took my hand and led me to the garage. She chose a more modest Mercedes E300 instead of the Maserati to avoid drawing too much attention. Young master, do you want some milk tea? She asked as we drove. I nodded eagerly. She stopped the car and came back with 2 huge bags of snacks, fruit, and a beautiful little cake with a pig design on it. I took a sip of the sweet milk tea and felt amazing. When I saw the cake, I almost didn't want to eat it because it looked so nice. Don't worry, there's plenty more, Xiao Lian encouraged. I took a big scoop. It was soft, creamy, and so sweet I felt like I was floating on a cloud. It's so good. Do you want some, Sister Xiao Lian? She laughed and shook her head, warning me not to eat too many sweets or I'd get cavities. I didn't care, because once my cultivation reached the foundation establishment stage, my body would be immune to all diseases, let alone a few toothaches. We arrived at the household registration office. There was a massive line of at least 50 people waiting outside. But as soon as we stepped out of the car, a manager rushed out to greet us and ushered us straight inside. Hey, why don't they have to wait? Someone shouted from the line. It's not fair. I've been here for hours. The manager turned to the crowd with a cold glare. Quiet. This isn't your house. If you don't want to wait, leave. These are the director's honored guests, understand? The crowd went silent. 20 minutes later, I walked out clutching my brand new ID card. I noticed the people in line staring at me with sharp, angry eyes. Sister Xiao Lian, they look like they hate us, I whispered, grabbing her hand. That's just because you're so cute, she teased. They're probably jealous and want to kidnap you, so stay close. I tightened my grip on her hand, making her giggle. As we drove away, I could still hear the people behind us grumbling, but I didn't care. I had a name, an ID, and a family now. Behind us, those two men were still shouting empty threats, acting like they were actually going to chase after our car. They just wanted to hurl a few more insults to feel better. But then, a manager stepped up to them with a dark, freezing expression. They didn't even notice him at first. You too, the manager growled. Get lost. The registration office isn't welcoming you today. The men froze, completely stunned. They couldn't understand why the manager was so angry. Do you have any idea who that was? The manager roared, looking at them with pure contempt. That was the young master of the Wong family. You've got some nerve. The two men were kicked out right then and there. I looked back and saw them standing by the side of the road, looking like they wanted to cry. One of them slumped his shoulders, muttering about how he'd waited all night for nothing. I felt a tiny bit bad, but then I remembered how they had looked at me. They brought it on themselves. Next, Xiao Yin took me to a Tianshui district shopping mall, straight into a bright, sleek store with a fruit logo on the door. The place was spotless, with glass counters showing off all kinds of shiny gadgets. A saleswoman hurried over, smiling at us. Welcome. What can I help you find today? Xiao Lian didn't even look at the displays. It's not for me. He needs a phone. The saleswoman looked down at me. I tried to look natural, but I knew I probably looked like a wide-eyed toddler. She reached into a counter and pulled out a small device. This is the Fruit 5S, she explained to Xiao Lian. It has a 4-inch screen and a decent chip. It's perfect for a child his age. Xiao Lian shook her head immediately. He's not my brother. Go get the latest models. All of them. The saleswoman blinked, her jaw dropping slightly. She scrambled to the back and returned with 4 different boxes. The Fruit 14, the 14 Pro, the 14 Plus, and the 14 Pro Max. She started explaining the specs and the differences, but most of it went over my head. I just liked the way the 14 Pro felt in my hand. It wasn't too big, wasn't too small. I handed over the card. Just like that, 11,000 yuan was gone. The saleswoman was so excited she threw in a free teddy bear. I could hear her whispering to her co-workers as we left, probably bragging about the kid who just dropped a fortune on a flagship phone. Back in the car, the midday sun was scorching, but the air conditioning kept us cool. I kept turning the phone over in my hands, mesmerized by the black glass. Sister Xiao Yin, what does this thing actually do? I asked. I'd seen people on the streets staring at these screens like they were possessed, tapping away like crazy. The saleswoman had shown me how to turn it on, but that was it. I found the camera icon and tapped it. Suddenly, the screen turned into a mirror. I opened my mouth, and the kid on the screen opened his mouth too. Click, I took my first photo. You can watch cartoons, send messages, and most importantly, call your sister, Xiao Yin said while navigating through traffic. You can even do video calls so you can see her face. My ears perked up at that. I wanted to call my sister right now, but Xiao Yin was busy driving, and I didn't want to mess it up. I leaned my head against the window, watching the city blur past, feeling a little restless. Xiao Yin noticed I was bored. It's lunchtime anyway. Let's get you fed. We pulled up to a massive, high-end restaurant called Heaven on Earth. Just looking at the grand entrance made my stomach growl. We walked inside, and a skinny waiter approached us. A private box on the 3rd floor, please, Xiao Yin said firmly. The waiter looked uncomfortable. Another shorter waiter stepped in. I'm so sorry, miss, but the 3rd floor is fully booked. Xiao Yin frowned. Fine, give us one on the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor is also full, the waiter replied, bowing slightly. I could see the sparks flying in Xiao Yin's eyes. There were dozens of rooms in this place. There was no way they were all taken. She wasn't about to let a member of the Wong family eat in the crowded lobby. Get your manager, she said, her voice turning ice cold. My patience is running thin. Realizing she wasn't someone to mess with, the waiter ran off. A moment later, a round, middle-aged man with a greasy face came scurrying over. Miss Xiaolian, I am so sorry. I had no idea it was you, the manager gasped. He looked terrified. Everyone in the business world knew who my sister was, the legendary CEO of the Wong Group. The waiter tried to explain the situation, but the manager cut him off by slamming his hand on a table. You idiot. Do you know who this is? This is our most honored guest. Open a box immediately. The poor waiter looked like his soul had left his body. He was just following orders, but now he was taking the fall. The manager gave us a greasy smile and ushered us toward the elevator. We were led to room 301 on the third floor. It was huge, and the waiter handed the menu to Xiao Yin, who immediately passed it to me. Young master, pick whatever you like, she said. The waiter standing by the door nearly choked. He had seen the manager groveling to Xiao Yin, and now she was calling a 5-year-old young master. I could tell he was questioning his entire existence. I looked at the menu for a long time. Everything looked so fancy and complicated. Finally, I pointed at the cumin lamb. Xiao Yin laughed and added a few more signature dishes to the list. While we waited for the food, I pulled out my phone again. Sister Xiao Yin, help me. I don't know how to use this. The waiter's eyes bugged out when he saw the Fruit 14 Pro in my small hands. He looked like he wanted to catch it in case I dropped it. That phone probably cost 2 months of his salary. Once he left, Xiao Yin sat next to me and patiently showed me the ropes. She had already installed a SIM card using my new ID. She helped me set up a social media account and added herself as a friend. Then, she searched for my sister's name. Across town in the CEO's office, my sister's phone buzzed. She looked down and saw a friend request from a new account. She smiled, knowing exactly who it was, and hit accept. Back at the restaurant, my phone chimed. See, Xiao Yin pointed to the screen. Now you're connected. Press this button for a voice call, and this one if you want to see her on video. I stared at the screen, feeling like I held a piece of magic in my hands. I wasn't just a stray on the street anymore. I was a phone call away from home. This is how you send your location, Xiao Yin explained. I picked it up quickly. I found my sister's contact and tapped the video call button. A rhythmic ringing filled the room until, suddenly, the screen flickered to life. There was Sister Siki. I grinned at the phone, feeling a surge of warmth. She started peppering me with questions. Did I like the phone? Had I eaten lunch yet? We chatted back and forth, the conversation growing so lively that Xiao Yin couldn't even find a gap to join in. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the room. The heavy door to our private booth swung open. A group of people marched inside, looking confused. Wait, why is someone in here? A woman asked, her voice shrill. Yeah, didn't Guoqiang book the whole floor? Another added. They stared at us. Hello? We booked this place. Please leave. A group of middle-aged men and women began chattering all at once, their voices rising in a messy chorus of entitlement. A burly man in a blue suit pushed through the crowd. He had a fierce, mean-looking face. What's going on? Why is it so noisy? He barked. Guoqiang, we came in and found these people sitting here, one of the women said. Didn't we pay for the whole floor? Get them out of here. The man, Lu Guoqiang, took in the scene. He saw me, a 5-year-old, and Xiao Yin. He squinted at her, clearly finding her face familiar but unable to place it. Listen, Lu Guoqiang said, his voice dropping into a tone that brooked no argument. I've booked the entire 3rd floor. Go eat downstairs. Xiao Yin didn't even look at him. She waited a few seconds before giving a cold, disinterested reply. There are plenty of booths on this floor. Taking one isn't a big deal. If you don't have enough room, you're welcome to eat in the lobby on the 1st floor. The lobby? Lu Guoqiang's face turned a deep shade of red. He was furious. I am a director at Hailong Group. You should think carefully about the consequences of offending me. Get out now while I'm still being patient. Today was his daughter's graduation feast. He had invited all his relatives and younger family members to celebrate. He couldn't let his reputation be trampled by a woman and a child in front of everyone he knew. Xiao Yin finally looked up, her gaze meeting his with icy calm. Hailong Group? Sounds impressive. I suppose you think you run all of Shanghai? My phone was still active. Sister Siki had heard every single word. On the screen, her beautiful face had turned into a mask of pure frost. Her knuckles were white from gripping her phone so hard. Hylon group, she muttered. Low-level trash. How dare they bully my people? She looked at me through the screen. Xiao Ku, give the phone to that uncle. Sister knows him. I want to have a little chat. I believed her. I didn't like this man. He was ugly and mean. But if my sister knew him, I had to be polite. I hopped off my chair and ran over to Lu Guoqiang, holding the phone out. Uncle, my sister wants to talk to you. Xiao Lian didn't stop me. She looked like she was settling in to watch a very entertaining show. Lu Guoqiang took the phone instinctively. The moment he looked at the screen, he turned to stone. Sister Siki was staring at him through the lens, and the sheer coldness of her gaze seemed to vibrate through the device. President Wang, his voice cracked. How are you? Is your health well? He was falling apart. Facing the eldest daughter of the Wang family, the top power in Shanghai, he didn't know what to do. He started babbling nonsense. Are you one of Zhao Mo's people from Hailong? Siki asked coldly. Lu Guoqiang was terrified. If this woman wanted to, she could make sure he never worked in this city again. Yes, President Wang, I am so sorry. I was too hasty. Please don't lower yourself to deal with a nobody like me. He bowed and scraped to the tiny screen, a pathetic smile plastered on his face. I'll take everyone and leave right now. I won't ruin your mood. We're going. We're leaving. The call ended. Lu Guoqiang let out a long breath, his shirt already soaked with cold sweat. He handed the phone back to me with trembling hands and a stiff, forced grin. I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot. We're leaving now. I'll pay for your meal. Please enjoy yourselves. Xiao Lian sneered. No need. Lu Guoqiang didn't argue. He practically chased his relatives out of the room. Outside in the hallway, the crowd was buzzing with confusion. Guoqiang, who was that on the phone? Why are we leaving? Yeah, let's just call the manager and have them kicked out, a younger man suggested. Lu Guoqiang's face went green. He turned and slapped the younger man across the face. Do you have any idea who they are? Have you heard of the Wang family? I'm lucky I walked out of there in one piece, and you're still running your mouth? Do you want to die? The group went silent. The name, Wang family, carried a weight that no one dared to challenge. Their graduation feast was ruined, but Lu Guoqiang didn't care. He led them downstairs as fast as his legs could carry him. In the lobby, the fat manager saw them coming and hurried over with a smile. Oh, Brother Lu, you didn't tell me you were arriving. Lu Guoqiang exploded. Manager Du, President Wang's people were in my booth, and you didn't say a word? I almost lost my entire career because of you. He huffed and marched out of the restaurant, leaving the manager standing there in shock. Manager Du was stunned. He had been busy flirting with a new waitress and completely forgot about the booth double booking. Now a massive bill was gone, and he had no idea how to explain it to the owner. Back in booth 301, I was stuffed. The cumin lamb was amazing. I had polished off the whole plate. Once we finished, Xiao Lian led me downstairs. As we passed the manager, I noticed his face looked strange. I looked closer, focusing my energy. Uncle, I said in my small voice. There's something wrong with your kidneys. You should go to the hospital and get checked. Manager Du forced a smile, clearly not taking a 5-year-old seriously. Sure, kid. I'll check it out. I frowned. His face was tinged with green, his breath was weak, and the energy around his midsection was completely blocked. If my analysis was right, he had a malignant tumor. But I had done my part by warning him. We walked out to the car. As I climbed into the seat, I started thinking. I needed a cauldron to refine pills. Using a rice cooker at home was too loud and hard to control. If Sister Siki caught me, I wouldn't be able to explain it. I looked at Xiao Lian in the driver's seat. Sister Xiao Lian? I tugged her sleeve. I want to see a cauldron. Where can I find one? She looked at me, completely baffled. A cauldron? Like for alchemy? They don't really sell those, Xiao Ku. They're just decorations. You can't cook anything good in those. I put on my best puppy dog eyes, looking as pitiful as possible. I just want to see one. Please, can you take me? She couldn't resist. Okay. We'll go look for one after we buy your clothes, all right? Yay, you're the best. The car started moving smoothly into traffic. I opened a cartoon on my phone to pass the time. Suddenly, a notification popped up. It was from Sister Siki. I opened the message and saw a transfer. I counted the zeros. 5 of them. 100,000 yuan. Little brother, this is your pocket money, the message read. Ask Sister Xiao Lian to show you how to spend it. Tell me if there's anything you want to eat or buy, okay? I smiled and typed back. Thank you, sister. Hee hee. A moment later, her reply came in, sounding shocked. Xiao Ke, you already know how to type. I realized I'd made a mistake the moment I sent that message. I couldn't exactly tell her my master in the mountains taught me everything. In reality, there wasn't a single word I didn't know how to read or write. Sister Xiao Lian sent it for me. I typed quickly, shifting the blame entirely onto her. I had to keep my secret identity safe, even if it meant making her look like the culprit. I closed the app and went back to watching my cartoons. I laughed out loud every time the wolf in the show got hit by his wife's frying pan. A little while later, we arrived at our final stop. My eyes lit up as we walked into the Red Grand Mall. It was massive, 8 floors high with dozens of shops on every level. It was enough to make my head spin. Xiao Lian held my hand and led me straight to the 5th floor. We headed for the biggest store there, a high-end brand called FD. At the front desk, Xiao Lian flashed a green card. Welcome, Diamond VIP. Please wait just a moment, the clerk said respectfully. She made a quick call, and in less than a minute, the floor manager arrived to personally lead us through the collections. It didn't take long. When we finally walked out, 2 employees followed behind us carrying several large bags of clothes to the car. Once the trunk was loaded and they left, I looked up at Xiao Lian with my most expectant eyes. All right, she sighed, pinching my cheek. I'll take you to see a cauldron. She remembered seeing one at the Xianyun Temple on the outskirts of the city. She didn't understand why I was so interested in a dusty old relic, but she started the engine anyway. It's a long drive, little master. You should take a nap. It's going to be boring. I nodded, though I didn't think I could sleep. I was too excited to see a real alchemy furnace. But halfway there, the exhaustion from the day caught up to me. I fell fast asleep in the back seat. Xiao Lian laughed softly when she saw me snoring. Just a second ago you were so stubborn, and now look at you. The drive took nearly an hour. When we reached the temple, Xiao Lian gently nudged my ear. Wake up, little master. We're here. There's your cauldron. I rubbed my eyes, still groggy, and followed her inside. It was the weekend, so the place was fairly crowded. The temple wasn't large, just a single hall. Legend said a famous Taoist master used to paint here, and his disciples built this place in his honor. But over the generations, it had fallen into ruin. Now, only one old priest remained. I scanned the room, but I didn't see the cauldron immediately. Instead, I saw 2 familiar faces. Kind sister, big brother, I shouted, running toward them. Lin Xiao and her companion turned around. She looked at me with a puzzled expression, trying to place my face. Wait, do I know you? I'm Xiao Ke. Don't you remember me? I grinned. She slapped her forehead in realization. Xiao Ke, what happened to you? You look so different. They were both stunned. Just a few days ago, I was a filthy, starving street kid. Now, my skin was clear, I was wearing trendy clothes, and I'd clearly been eating well. I looked like a completely different person. I've been looking everywhere for you, she said, giving my head a playful knock. Where did you run off to? I stuck my tongue out at her. I found my big sister. I have a home now. Xiao Lian stepped up behind me, and Xiao gave her a polite nod. She seemed relieved to see I was being looked after by someone who appeared so professional and wealthy. We talked for a bit, but they were in a hurry. They had come to pray for Xiao's mother, who was battling cancer. Before they left, I pulled out my brand new iPhone 14 Pro to add her as a friend. I saw their eyes widen at the expensive phone. They definitely knew I was in good hands now. After they walked away, I noticed Xiao looked worried, but I had business to attend to. I followed Xiao Lian into the main hall. There it was. The cauldron was a deep yellowish black, over a meter tall, and looked incredibly heavy. In front of it sat an old priest with shifty eyes. He was the last priest of the temple, and right now, he looked like he was dozing off. I inspected the furnace. It wasn't imperial grade, but for what I needed right now, it was perfect. Little friend, the old priest said without opening his eyes. You didn't come here to steal my cauldron, did you? I actually was thinking about how to get it home. I even had a brief, naughty thought about knocking the old man out and just taking it. Xiao Yan leaned in. See? It's just an old pot. It's useless. Sister Xiao Yan, can we take it home? I asked, wrapping my arms around the heavy metal. I really like it. Please. I refused to let go. Xiao Yan rubbed her temples. Most kids threw tantrums over toy cars, but her young master was throwing a fit over a piece of ancient scrap metal. Since it was temple property, she couldn't just take it, but she couldn't say no to me either. She turned to the priest. Taoist master, is this cauldron for sale? Name a price. We won't let you lose out. The old man didn't speak. He just held up one finger. 100,000 yuan. Xiaolian asked. The priest's eyes practically turned into dollar signs. He had been thinking 10,000, but he kept his face serious. He'd been selling off temple relics for years to survive. This dusty thing was useless to him. Since the boy has a spiritual connection with my ancestors' furnace, he said grandly, 100,000 it is. Consider it a donation to the temple. I saw the greedy glint in his eyes. He was totally ripping us off. Sister, it's too expensive. I don't want it anymore, I said, pretending to be disappointed as I let go of the metal. Xiaolian knew he was being a crook, too. Since I'd changed my mind, she turned to lead me out. The old priest panicked. He couldn't let a big fish like this swim away. He scrambled to his feet. Wait. Since the connection is so strong, the price is negotiable. He looked desperate now, which only made him look more suspicious. I turned back and looked him right in the eye. Will you take 3,000? I asked. The old priest went dead silent. The old priest looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Xiao Lian had just offered 100,000, and now I was lowballing him at 3,000. The gap was big enough to swallow a mountain. 5,000, he barked, his face turning red. Take it for 5,000, and let's call it a day. For 1,000, I countered. Not a penny more. 400,000, he shouted, then realized his mistake. I mean 40,000. You can take it right now. 5,000, I said, my voice cold. If you don't sell it, I'm walking out that door. 35,000. Final price. Don't say another word. 6,000. Xiao Yin stood there with her jaw dropped, watching me haggle with this old Taoist like a middle-aged housewife at a wet market. I didn't care. I knew exactly what I was doing. 8,800, the priest yelled, pulling at his beard. Just take it. I'm losing money here. He looked like he wanted to curse me 1,000 times over. Xiao Yin looked at my innocent, chubby face and felt like she was dreaming. This kid was a shark. She paid the man, arranged for people to haul the heavy cauldron back to the Wang Villa, and then drove me straight to the Wang Group headquarters. We headed up to the top-floor executive suite. Xiao Yin had finished her mission, and since my sister, Siki, was stuck in a meeting downstairs, she told me to stay put and not wander off. Then she headed out to handle her own work. The office felt huge and empty. I played with my phone for a bit, but I got bored fast. My eyes wandered to a high cabinet where I saw brushes and rice paper. I felt like practicing my calligraphy. The cabinet was about 2 meters high, and I was barely over a meter tall, but that didn't matter. I took a light leap. Since I'd entered the early stages of chi refinement, my physical strength was already beyond a normal adult's. I grabbed the supplies easily, landed softly, and spread the paper out on the massive desk. I dipped the brush in the ink, thinking back to the poems my master had taught me. My entire aura changed the moment my hand gripped the brush. My eyes grew sharp. I moved with a fluid, powerful speed, the ink flowing onto the paper like a dragon. In 3 minutes, I finished the first piece. It was a poem about the bitterness and joy of life, about the vast mountains and the drifting clouds. The characters were beautiful and bold, radiating a sense of ancient wisdom that didn't match my 5-year-old body. I set it aside and pulled out a fresh sheet. This time, I wrote something different, something grand and heroic about finding immortals at the bottom of a clear pool. Each stroke felt like a hidden blade, sharp enough to shake the soul. Satisfied, I taped both pieces to the walls. I figured my sister would like them. My master always said my calligraphy was top tier, and I felt pretty confident. After a while, the exhaustion hit me, and I curled up on the sofa and fell fast asleep. When Siki finally finished her meeting and walked into the office, the sun was starting to set. She saw me sleeping and smiled, walking softly to her desk to drop off her files. Then she noticed the mess, the ink, the brushes, the paper. Xiao Lian is too much, she whispered, not really angry. Giving a child brushes to play with. She started cleaning up, but then her eyes caught the paper on the wall. She froze. Did my brother write this? She muttered, staring at the poem about the clouds and dust. No, impossible. Siki loved calligraphy. That's why she kept the supplies in her office. But because she understood the art, she knew how incredible these pieces were. The brushwork was masterful, better than anything she'd seen from world-class experts. She turned and saw the second piece. Quiet greenery, flowers slowly blooming. Where are the immortals at the bottom of the pool? She read it over and over, her breath catching in her throat. This wasn't just writing, it was a masterpiece. It was sharp, restrained, and legendary. If this hit an auction house, it would sell for a fortune. Her head was spinning. How did a miracle like this end up on her wall? She gently shook me awake. Xiao Ku, she asked, pointing at the wall with a smile. Who wrote this calligraphy? I rubbed my eyes, still half asleep. I did, I said naturally. She laughed and pinched my nose. She clearly didn't believe me, but she didn't push it. She probably figured she'd just ask Xiao Lian tomorrow. It was time to go home. Back at the Wang family estate, Aunt Lon was staring at a massive, ugly metal pot in the middle of the driveway. It was heavy, dusty, and looked completely out of place in a luxury villa. When Siki's sports car pulled up, everyone gathered around. Miss, where do you want us to put this incense burner? Aunt Lon asked, looking confused. There's no room for something this big inside. Siki looked at the giant object and blinked. I didn't buy an incense burner. Then she remembered what Xiao Lian had mentioned after the meeting. I had bought something at the Taoist temple. She looked down at me, the culprit. Xiao Ku, why did you buy a cultivation cauldron? Are you planning to make pills like the legends? My heart jumped. Was I busted already? No. I lied, giving her my best awkward grin. I just thought it looked cool. I wanted it as a toy. Seeing that everyone's curiosity was fading, I relaxed. Siki sighed and ordered some strong servants to lug the heavy thing up to my bedroom. She didn't understand it, but she spoiled me too much to say no. Once the door was locked and the cauldron was in my room, the weight lifted off my chest. Now that I had the tools, I could finally start. I wasn't just making pills for myself, either. I was planning to make beauty pills. They didn't help with cultivation, but they could freeze a person's appearance in time for 50 years. For a woman, that was more valuable than gold. I could already imagine my sisters' faces. I ate my dinner quickly, my mind racing. I took a fast shower, locked my door, and got to work. I could finally focus on refining the pills I needed. I looked at the dark, heavy cauldron sitting in the corner of my room and let out a small, mischievous grin. It was time to get serious. This thing was a beast. It was yellowish-black, thick, and weighed over 300 pounds. It had taken 5 grown men just to haul it up the stairs, and they barely made it. I walked over and ran my small hand across the cold metal. Big treasure, I whispered. Let's get to work today. My room was about 40 square meters, which was plenty of space for a 1-meter-wide cauldron, but I couldn't just leave it in the corner. I needed it in the center. I grabbed the legs of the massive burner with my tiny hands and heaved. With a sudden burst of strength, I lifted the entire thing over my head. If anyone had walked in, they would have seen a 5-year-old child holding an object several times his size, looking like a miniature version of a legendary hero. Even for me, 300 pounds was a strain. My muscles burned as I carried it to the middle of the room and set it down gently. I let out a long breath, wiped the sweat from my brow, and sat on the bed to rest for a moment. Once my breathing steadied, I sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the cauldron. I reached into my storage ring and pulled out the herbs needed for chi-gathering pills. Everything was ready, and I began using my spiritual energy to trace complex patterns on the floor beneath the cauldron, forming a formation. I tried to trigger the array with my chi, but a flicker of light appeared for a split second before vanishing. It failed, and I knocked on my head, frustrated. I tried a second time, but it was a failure. Failure, and a third time, failure again. Beads of sweat rolled down my face. This was just a basic fire control array, the lowest of the low, and I couldn't even get it right. I took a deep breath and focused everything I had on the last attempt, tracing every line with absolute precision. When I finished, I pushed my chi into the pattern. Boom! A fierce flame erupted instantly beneath the cauldron. The heat was intense, but it stayed contained within the array, perfectly heating the metal. It worked, and I felt a surge of relief. My master's memories contained vast knowledge of arrays, but this was my first time actually putting it into practice. Finally, I muttered, "Next step." I opened the lid and began tossing the herbs inside in a specific order. I closed my eyes, sensing the changes within the cauldron. The temperature skyrocketed. The herbs began to break down, their impurities burning away until only the pure essence remained. I didn't dare distract myself for even a second. Refining pills required patience and absolute focus. I used thin strands of spiritual energy to wrap around the herbal essence, pushing the dross aside. As the temperature hit its peak, the essence began to solidify. This was the final step, condensation. My forehead was drenched in sweat, and my chi was running dangerously low, but my eyes remained steady. When the heat reached the critical limit, I slammed the essences together. Thump! A muffled sound, like a firecracker going off inside a box, echoed from the cauldron. I immediately shut down the fire control array and collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air. I was completely exhausted. My dantian was empty. I realized then that if I could just break through to the middle stage of chi refining, this wouldn't be so grueling. Last time I used a rice cooker, I didn't care about quality, so it was easy. This time, I had given it my all. After resting for a while, I stood up and opened the lid. 1, 2, 3, 10. 10 perfectly round pills lay at the bottom. Wow, I whispered, my eyes wide. 10 pills. My master once told me that if a refiner could produce more than 7 pills in a single batch within their first 100 attempts, they were a genius. I had just made 10. I felt a surge of pride, not realizing that 8 pills would make someone a monster, and 10 made me a freak of nature. These were smoother and brighter than my last batch, meaning the quality was much higher. I tucked the pills away, did a quick cleanup, and crawled into bed. I swallowed 1 chi-gathering pill and drifted into a meditative sleep. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. I stretched my limbs, feeling incredibly refreshed. The exhaustion from the night before seemed to have made my body even more resilient after a night of cultivation. I washed up and headed downstairs before Aunt Lon even had to call me. My sister, Wang Siki, was already there, sipping tea. "Look at you, so diligent," she said, smiling as I walked in. "Waking up so early. Such a good boy." She reached out and pinched my cheek. "Sister Chi, stop pinching my face." I pouted, looking as pitiful as possible. She just giggled. All right, I'll stop." We ate breakfast together, but I decided not to go to the company with her today. I wanted to reach the middle stage of chi refining as soon as possible. Once my chi reserves were large enough, I could refine beauty pills. Both were grade 1 pills, but the beauty pill was much harder to make, the high-end stuff of its class. After Siki left for work, I spent the morning running laps around the villa grounds. Aunt Lon tried to follow me at first, worried I'd fall, but she quickly realized I was a marathon runner in a toddler's body. The perimeter of the Wang estate was about 2 kilometers, and I was doing laps without breaking a sweat. Eventually, she got the gardener, Xiao Lu, to run with me instead. Half an hour later, Xiao Lu was face down on the grass, gasping for air while I kept going. I could see the look of pure defeat on his face. He was a grown man getting outrun by a 5-year-old. I ate a massive lunch to refuel and spent the afternoon sitting cross-legged in the back garden. Xiao Lu, who was supposed to be watching me, got bored seeing me asleep and pulled out his phone to play games. Meanwhile, at the Wang Group office, Siki was staring at a piece of calligraphy on her desk. "Xiao Yin, where did this come from?" "President Wang, you've been asking me all day," Xiao Yin said, sounding like she was about to cry. "I really don't know." Siki tapped her fingers on the desk. The calligraphy had appeared yesterday afternoon. It wasn't there when she and I had first returned to the villa. "Do you think?" Xiao Yin started hesitantly. "Could the young master have written it?" Siki laughed at the absurdity of it. "He's 5 years old. You can ask him to draw a picture, but writing something like this? Be realistic." Xiao Yin looked like she was having a mental breakdown. The afternoon blurred by, and soon Siki was back home. We ate dinner together and sat down to watch cartoons, just like a normal family. Little did she know, her normal little brother was anything but. "What's wrong, Sister Seven?" I asked, stopping mid-bite. I had a grape in my mouth as I blinked at Wang Siki. She looked at me seriously and told me that Sister Four would be coming home in a few days. I froze. Aside from Sister Seven, I hadn't met any of my other family members yet. She warned me that Sister Four had a terrible temper. She said she was the only one who truly knew how to dote on her little brother. Then, she leaned in and kissed my cheek. My entire body went numb. I sat there on the sofa, paralyzed. Was she drunk? I sniffed the air, but there was no smell of alcohol. It was just strange. She laughed, telling me she was only teasing, but my heart was still pounding. Actually, being kissed by my sister didn't feel half bad. Once the cartoons were over, I headed back to my room. I swallowed a chi-gathering pill and went straight into meditation. The next few days were a blur of the same routine. I ate, I exercised, and I cultivated. My spiritual energy was swelling to a breaking point. I was only one step away from the mid-stage of chi refining. During those days, I managed to refine 4 more batches of pills. I had 40 of them now. But Sister Seven was acting weirder by the day. She looked at me like she wanted to eat me alive. She was constantly grabbing me to kiss my face. I didn't exactly mind, but it was intense. I spent my free time scouting the estate, memorizing every corner of the grounds. One evening, I bolted to my room immediately after dinner to avoid her teasing. She looked offended, like she thought I was starting to dislike her. While she was downstairs ignoring a text from Sister Four, Wang Wenya, I was locking my door. I jumped onto my bed, my heart racing with excitement. I pulled 2 pills from my storage ring. Tonight was the night. I was going to break through. Little Black was already snoring in the corner. I sat cross-legged, a faint glow shimmering around my body. I felt the spiritual energy swirling, sinking into my skin. I took a deep breath, adjusted my state, and swallowed both pills at once. The energy exploded inside me. I'd been training for 6 days, and my energy was saturated. I could feel a thin membrane inside me, a barrier blocking my progress. To reach the mid-stage, I had to smash through it. I gathered every ounce of energy and slammed it against the barrier. A dull roar echoed in my head. The barrier trembled, but it didn't break. I didn't panic. My master always told me that breakthrough was never easy. If it were, everyone would be an immortal. I tried again, and again. On the 3rd impact, cracks finally appeared. But I was running out of steam. I popped another pill into my mouth. "Break for me," I screamed internally. The energy surged like a tidal wave. Pop! It sounded like a needle piercing paper. A warm current flooded my limbs, and my dantian expanded to 3 times its original size. At that exact moment, a thick, black grime started oozing out of my pores. I felt myself grow 2 centimeters taller. My skin felt incredibly tender. I felt like I was floating on a cloud. The next morning, Lan Yi came to wake me up. When I didn't answer her calls, she got worried. She tried the handle, found it locked, and panicked. She probably thought something terrible had happened to me. She rushed in with a spare key, and the smell hit her immediately. It was a faint, fishy stench. I opened my eyes the second she stepped inside. Reaching the mid-stage hadn't just made me stronger, my senses had evolved. I could feel everything within 20 meters of me. My mind felt sharp, clear, and powerful. I let out a long breath and looked at her. "Lan Yi, I'm getting up now," I said quickly. "You can go back downstairs." She stared at me, confused. "Young master, what were you doing last night? You're so dirty. You smell like old fish." I looked down and turned red. My pajamas were soaked in black filth. It was disgusting. I went catching fish with Little Black. I lied. I jumped off the bed, grabbed fresh clothes, and bolted into the bathroom. Lan Yi just sighed, muttering about how naughty children could be. She probably thought I'd snuck out in the middle of the night. I scrubbed myself raw in the shower. Clumps of black grime washed down the drain. After brushing my teeth and getting dressed, I finally felt human again. I headed downstairs and hopped onto the chair next to Sister Seven. "Sister, I want that fruit," I said, pointing at a plate across the table. She didn't answer. I turned to look at her and realized she was staring at me with her mouth wide open. Even Lan Yi was frozen by the door. "What's wrong?" I asked, blinking my eyes. Is there something on my face? Xiaoko. Siki's voice was trembling. I started to get nervous. Was something wrong with my transformation? Then she screamed. How can you be this cute? She snatched me up and started kissing me frantically. My head was spinning. I didn't realize how much I had changed. My skin was now pale and flawless. My face was perfectly round and healthy, and I apparently smelled like fresh milk. I looked like a little porcelain doll. Lonnie brought me a mirror, and I finally saw it. I looked like a completely different person. Sister Seven wouldn't let me go, squeezing me until I could barely move. She was obsessed. I barely managed to eat 2 bites of breakfast that morning because she wouldn't stop fussing over me. Sister Seven sat next to me, her eyes locked onto mine with a smile that made me feel like a rabbit cornered by a tiger. It was a little terrifying. After breakfast, she didn't head to the office. She decided Xiao Yin could handle the Wong group for the day. Back at the corporate headquarters, I could almost imagine Xiao Yin sneezing in the president's office, buried under a mountain of paperwork. She was probably feeling pretty mistreated, begging for her boss to come back. Maybe this was her punishment for not telling Sister Seven about the calligraphy master sooner. Sister Seven changed into a casual outfit, cream velvet pants, a pale yellow sweatshirt, and a white hat. She looked better than any celebrity on TV. She told me she wanted to take me out to play before my other sisters came home. Apparently, once they arrived, they'd all be fighting over me, and she wouldn't get any one-on-one time. Sister, where are we going? I asked. She knelt down and adjusted my denim jacket and cargo pants. Just follow me, she said. Your only job is to think about what you want to eat. She looked at me with a proud gleam in her eyes. I could tell she was imagining how jealous people would be when they saw us together. She seemed like a completely different person since I'd arrived. She didn't overthink it, though. She led me to her Porsche 718 convertible, and we roared away from the manor. As we left, I didn't notice Xiao Lu, the gardener, lurking in a corner with a wicked grin. He had Little Black tied to a tree with a thick hemp rope. My poor dog was stuck on his back, belly exposed. If it weren't for the young master, I wouldn't have to go running every day, Xiao Lu muttered. He pulled a warm, fragrant fried chicken leg out of his pocket and waved it under Little Black's nose. Little Black's eyes went wide, and he started barking frantically. Go ahead, bark all you want. No one's coming to save you. Inside the villa, Lon E was wandering around, looking confused. Where did that dog go so early in the morning? She wondered aloud. Meanwhile, Sister Seven and I arrived at the Imperial Mall. It was massive, clothes, snacks, jewelry, and even a cinema. We started on the 2nd floor. By the time we finished with the 1st floor, I was already loaded down with milk tea and a chicken leg. We were a sight to behold. A cold, elegant goddess walking hand in hand with a cute, porcelain-skinned kid. Every head turned as we passed. I heard people whispering about how long Sister Seven's legs were, while others were practically melting over how cute I looked. One woman even joked about calling an ambulance because her heart couldn't take the cuteness. It was a bit overwhelming. All those adults staring at me made my skin crawl. I tugged on Sister Seven's hand. Where are we going next? She rubbed my head and smiled warmly. How about the amusement park? I'd read about amusement parks in the books at the manor. They were places for kids with small rides. To be honest, I wasn't that interested. Sister Seven saw my lack of enthusiasm and started doubting herself. She'd spent all night reading guides that said kids loved roller coasters. She decided we'd try it anyway, and if I hated it, we'd leave. We kept walking, and Sister Seven stopped to browse some jewelry. Before long, I was acting as her little assistant, carrying 2 gift bags. We entered a high-end shop, but she just glanced at the displays and sighed. Everything looked too gaudy and common for her taste. Hello, beautiful. A greasy voice called out from behind us. We ignored him. Miss, I'd love to get to know you, the voice persisted. Sister Seven turned around. The man looked to be about 24 with dyed yellow hair. He wasn't ugly, but he had that pretty boy vibe that felt fake. Sister Seven wasn't interested in an immature brat. Not interested, she said, her voice like ice. The guy didn't back down. He flashed a smile he clearly thought was charming. He had probably pegged her as a rich heiress and wanted to move up in the world. I saw you looking at the jewelry, he said. I actually study jade. Why don't I show you around? His name was Ma Yulong, a student specializing in jade identification. In reality, he was a well-known playboy at his university. Sister 7 didn't have time for people like him. "You look like a student," she warned. "Don't get any bright ideas, or you'll regret it." Ma Yulong flinched for a second, but he didn't stop. He thought her fiery temper just made the chase more fun. He bowed like a gentleman. "Miss, I can see you're bored. Why don't I take you to the jade stalls on the 7th floor? There's some high-stakes gambling on raw stones going on." My ears perked up at the mention of raw jade. If I could find high-quality spiritual jade, I could make protective amulets or even spirit tools for my sisters. Real spirit tools were rare and incredibly useful. "Where is the jade shop?" I asked. Ma Yulong finally noticed me. He seemed surprised by how milky and cute I looked. He figured I was his way in. "Little brother, I'll take you there. It's right on the 7th floor." He started to lead the way, but I stopped him with a grin. "No thanks, big brother. I'll go with my sister. You should go find another pretty lady to bother. You're not good enough for my sister anyway." His sunny smile froze instantly. The few people in the shop started snickering, looking at him like he was a clown. Sister 7 didn't say anything, but I could tell she was cheering for me in her head. That was my good little brother. For a long time after we left, my Yulong just stood there alone in the shop. A clerk walked up and asked if he wanted to buy anything, which only made him turn red with shame and rage. He glared at our retreating backs. He couldn't believe my sister hadn't given him any face at all. Since we were heading to the jade shops, he decided he wasn't done yet. With a dark expression, he walked out and made a phone call. By now, I'd finished my milk tea, but I still wanted more. I kept glancing at a nearby tea shop and then back at Sister 7. She noticed my lingering looks and burst out laughing. "You want more milk tea, don't you?" she teased. "Wait here, I'll go get some for my little baby." I stopped her before she could move. "Sister, I know how to use mobile payments now." I shook my phone at her with a grin and ran toward the shop. Sister 7 smiled warmly and sat on a bench outside to watch me. Realizing we had already bought too many bags to carry comfortably, she called Aunt Lon and asked her to send 2 servants to the 7th floor of the Imperial Mall to help us. I stood in line like a big boy. "Lychee boba tea is ready." "Next," the clerk shouted. One customer left, but then there was a pause. The clerk looked confused. "Next? Is no one ordering?" "Clerk's sister," I called out. She leaned over the high counter, looking for the source of the voice. The counter was over a meter tall, higher than me, so she hadn't seen me at first. When she finally spotted me, her eyes lit up. "Wow, what a cute boy," she whispered. I could tell she wanted to pinch my cheeks. "Are you here alone?" I could practically see her imagining a way to kidnap me because I was so adorable. "I'm with my sister," I said, pointing a chubby finger toward the entrance. Sister 7 was sitting there, the light hitting her face in a way that made her look noble and divine. The people in line gasped. The genes in our family were clearly on another level. The clerk snapped out of it and reminded me that I needed money to pay. She told me to go get my sister. I just shook my head. "I know how to pay. It's easy. I have my own money." I pulled out my phone and asked for the total. The people behind me nearly choked. A 5-year-old using the latest flagship phone? They were still using models from 3 years ago. The clerk decided to tease me. "I'll test you. 1 tea is 16 yuan. How much for 2? If you get it right, I'll give you 1 for free." I felt a bit of secondhand embarrassment. That kind of question might work on other kids, but for me, it was insulting. I'd been reading math books in the study for days. With my photographic memory, I'd mastered basic arithmetic long ago. 32, I said flatly. "So smart," she cried, giving me the discount. I opened my app, scanned the code, and paid. As I hopped away with the drinks, a man behind me went pale. He caught a glimpse of my account balance. It had over 100,000 yuan in it. When I got back, Sister 7 couldn't stop praising me. She remembered Aunt Lon saying I liked to hang out in the study, but she thought I was just playing. She realized now I was actually studying. Learning addition in just a few days? She wondered if her brother was a genius. But then she smiled. Genius or not, I was her brother, and that was all that mattered. We took the elevator to the 7th floor. The family servants met us there, and Sister 7 handed off our bags. This floor was different. It wasn't full of trendy clothes. It was packed with older people and street stalls. "Ice jade from the border. Only 30,000, someone yelled. "Ancient emperor's robes. Only 9,900. I spread my spiritual sense as we walked. Most of it was junk. I had the jade pendant from my parents, which was a high-grade spiritual tool, but I didn't want to use that for materials. I needed to find something new. Suddenly, I felt a faint vibration of energy. I pulled my sister toward a tiny, cramped stall. It was just a plastic sheet on the floor with a dozen random items. Most were garbage, but my eyes locked onto a heavy, pitch-black stone. It looked like a common mineral, but my internal vision saw right through its structure. It was black gold, or it was incredibly tough and flexible, a perfect material for refining tools. It was rare to find it in the mortal world. "Boss, how much for the black stone?" I asked the sleepy-looking owner. He blinked, looking me over. 50,000, he said casually. "Take it or leave it." 50,000 for a broken rock? Sister Seven raised an eyebrow. She was probably thinking about how profitable this business was. "Deal," I said immediately. This piece weighed about 50 pounds. I could make a flying sword and still have plenty left over. The owner's eyes flickered. He realized he'd asked for too little. He quickly put his hand on the stone. "Wait, it's 50,000, but I don't sell it alone. You have to buy something else too." He was trying to scam a fat sheep. He'd found that stone for free after a mountain blast and couldn't do anything with it. Sister Seven's face went cold. A powerful, oppressive aura radiated from her. "You black-hearted boss. You dare to hike the price on a piece of scrap?" The owner shivered. He looked up at her, and his eyes widened. He recognized that face. The coldness, the authority, this was the head of the Wong family. He literally fell off his stool, his legs turning to jelly. "Take it," he stammered. "No, no charge. It's free. Please, just take it." I was a bit confused. One word from my sister, and he was terrified? I didn't realize yet just how ruthless her reputation was in the business world. In this city, the Wong family was a titan. Crossing her meant your life was over. The servants struggled to pick up the heavy ore and lugged it down to the car. I was thrilled. This was a great harvest. Now, I just needed to see if I could find some high-quality jade to go with it. We moved past the messy street stalls and stopped in front of a massive jade shop. This had to be the place the yellow-haired guy mentioned earlier. A huge crowd had gathered around a massive boulder at the entrance, all of them whispering and pointing. The cutting machine was roaring. Someone in the crowd sighed loudly, saying this was the third attempt on that rock. If it didn't show any green, this time, the young man who bought it was finished. I watched as a guy in his 20s stood by the machine, his face turning a deep, panicked red. He looked like he was about to explode from the stress. I focused my senses on the giant stone. Ever since I reached the middle stage of chi refinement, my spiritual awareness had become incredibly sharp. A day ago, I would have been guessing like everyone else, but now, I could practically see through the layers. I shook my head slightly. There was nothing inside but solid gray rock. "Green. Come on, show me green," the young man shouted. The machine slammed down, and the stone split in two. It was completely empty. The guy collapsed instantly, wailing on the ground. He had spent 400,000 on 3 stones, and now he had nothing left. People around him either sighed in pity or smirked at his misfortune. That was the reality of stone gambling. One cut makes you a king, the next makes you a beggar. I looked at the rows of raw stones laid out on the ground. Most people relied on luck or tiny cracks in the surface to guess what was inside. But for me, it was like playing with a cheat code. My spiritual sense fanned out, scanning every rock. I could see the size, shape, and color of the jade hidden within each one. Sister. I tugged on Sister Seven's hand. "I want to pick some stones too. It looks like fun." Sister Seven didn't even hesitate. She knew stone gambling was risky, but if it made me happy, she didn't care about losing a few million. I cheered and ran toward the displays, but a staff member immediately stepped in my way. He looked at me with a nasty scowl. "This is for adults only, kid," he snapped. "Go play somewhere else." I pouted and looked back at my sister. Sister Seven's expression went icy. She stepped forward, her presence so cold it felt like the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The staff member shivered, his bravado vanishing instantly. He looked at her expensive clothes and realized she wasn't someone to mess with, but he still looked hesitant. "Madam, I need to verify your funds first," he stammered. "Just to make sure you can cover the costs if the stones are cut." The crowd started snickering. They looked at Sister Seven's youth and figured she was just some girl trying to look rich. One guy even joked that if there was more than $100 in her account, he'd eat the raw stones while doing a handstand. Sister Seven didn't say a word. She reached into her bag, pulled out a card, and handed it over. A few minutes later, a beautiful woman in a high-slit dress came sprinting back toward us, followed by the trembling staff member. "My sincerest apologies, miss," the woman gasped, bowing low as she returned the card. "We were incredibly disrespectful. Your balance exceeds 100 million. Please, follow me to the VIP section." The crowd went silent. The guy who promised to eat the rocks turned pale and tried to blend into the shadows. Sister Seven ignored them all. I grabbed a marker and started flying through the aisles. I marked over a dozen stones. Some were huge boulders costing 200,000. Others were small scraps for 2,000. Once I was done, the staff struggled to haul my haul over to the cutting station. Sister Seven swiped her card for the total, 1,876,000. She didn't even blink. "Do you want to take them home or cut them here?" the staff member asked. "Cut them, the crowd roared. They were desperate to see a show. I gave my sister a thumbs up and told them to go ahead. The master stone cutter, a man with 30 years of experience, stepped up to the machine. He moved with extreme caution, spraying water and lining up the blade. I watched him work and whispered to myself that he was being too slow. If it were up to me, I'd just slap the rocks open with my bare hands. The first stone was halfway through, and there was still no color. Then, someone screamed, "Green! It's green! Look!" The crowd surged forward. When the cut finished, the stone revealed a beautiful, clear green surface. It wasn't the highest quality, but it was large. 10,000, someone shouted. 12,000. 14. I nodded, letting them sell it. It was the worst stone in my pile, so I didn't mind letting it go. The buyer was thrilled and hauled it away. Then, the master moved to the second stone. It was a small, ugly piece that looked like a total dud. But the moment the blade passed through, a brilliant light flashed from the center. "Wow, another one." The crowd gasped, their mouths hanging open. I just sighed. Was this really supposed to be hard? Even Sister Seven was staring at the stone, her eyes wide with surprise. My sister didn't realize how lucky I actually was. 2 stones in, and I had already hit twice. A professional appraiser stepped up to examine the second piece. The surface was as black as ink, smooth and deep. "It's high-grade MO jade," the appraiser shouted. "Do I hear any bids for this top-tier MO jade?" "I'll take it." 15,000, someone yelled. 16,000. 20,000. The bidding peaked at 20,000. The staff looked at me, waiting to see if I'd sell. I didn't hesitate. I nodded. This kind of jade was useless for my cultivation. I didn't need it. The old stonecutter gave me a huge thumbs up, looking at me like I was some kind of lucky charm. Then came the third stone. This one was massive. The machine whirred, cutting it right down the middle, but when it fell open, it was completely empty. A collective sigh went through the crowd. They figured my luck had finally run out. This game was brutal like that, but I knew better. I walked over to the old master and pointed to the right half of the discarded rock. I hadn't seen it wrong. The jade was just tucked away in the corner, and the first cut had missed it entirely. "Grandpa, try cutting a slice right here," I said, marking the spot. "Sure thing, kid," he said kindly. "Don't be discouraged. You win some, you lose some." He lined up the blade and cut fast. As the stone split, a brilliant, clear white light flashed. The crowd gasped. It wasn't just jade, it was high-grade ice-type Qingbai jade. And it was huge. "My God, I'm going numb," someone screamed. The bids started flying before the staff could even open their mouths. 50,000, 80,000, 1 million. When the price hit 1 million, I signaled to sell. My sister, Wang Siki, leaned in and whispered that I should maybe keep it as a souvenir, but I just smiled. I knew what I was looking for, and this wasn't it. The fourth stone was next. The crowd went silent, waiting. When the blade finished, even the stonecutter froze. The jade inside was pure, flawless white, like a cloud fallen from the sky. Ice-seed white jade. Every appraiser and shop assistant in the building came running to look. The quality was insane. 1 million, 2 million. The shop owner himself stepped forward. "The shop will take it for 2 million. I hope everyone here can give me face and let me have this one. He clearly realized I was on a roll. I sold it for 2 million. The fifth stone, ice-seed mutton fat jade, sold for 2.8 million. The sixth stone, pure breed mutton fat jade, sold for 1.3 million. The seventh and eighth followed, bringing in another 900,000. The crowd was losing their minds. This wasn't gambling anymore. This was an unboxing video. Every single rock I touched turned into a fortune. People were breaking out in cold sweats just watching me. The old master was numb. His hands shook as he moved to the ninth stone. It was another piece of mutton fat jade, even larger than the last. The shop snapped it up for 3 million. I wasn't even counting the money at this point. I was here for spiritual energy, not a bank balance. I looked at the final 3 stones. The machine roared again. When the next one opened, the air seemed to get sucked out of the room. People looked confused. What is that? Is it transparent? The head appraiser's legs went weak. He nearly fell over. Top-grade glass seed emerald, and it's the size of a wash basin. He looked like he wanted to cry. He had missed this in the screening process, and he knew his boss was going to fire him for letting this slip into the cheap pile. The bidding turned into a war zone. 8 million. 9 million. Give my Fongjun group some face. 10 million. There is no face in an auction. These were the big players now. The shop owners didn't even dare to speak. 12 million. I'm buying this for the head of the Ouyang family. He's just a dog for the Ouyangs. My Li family bids 13 million. The price finally settled at 15 million. The atmosphere was so thick with tension you could feel it in your chest. Then, the second-to-last stone was opened. At first, it looked dull. Is that blue water jade? Looks like scrap. Even scrap is worth a few thousand. You've just been spoiled by the last 10 hits. But several old experts didn't say a word. They ran to the stage, pushing people aside to get a closer look. Move, you idiots, one appraiser barked at the crowd. This isn't blue water jade. As they cleaned the surface, a soft, purple glow emanated from deep within the blue. It looked alive. The staff member stepped onto the stage, his voice trembling. Emperor Blue Light Jade. Starting the bids now. Call an ambulance, someone groaned. My heart can't take this. I've seen Emperor Blue Jade in my lifetime. I can die happy now. Rumor had it the Wong family once bought a piece 10 times smaller than this for 100 million. If that was true, this giant chunk was worth $1 billion? The room exploded. People were frantically calling their bosses, their family heads, anyone with a checkbook. Some people even looked like they wanted to rush the stage and grab it. I watched them coldly. If anyone tried, I wouldn't show mercy. My sister stood up too, her eyes sharp, ready to protect me at any cost. 300 million, the vice head of the Li family shouted. 350 million, countered Ouyang Xiao, the eldest son of the Ouyang family. Let's stop playing games, Gao Jiejun, the CEO of the Gao Group, said calmly. 700 million. The entire mall went silent. People were struggling to breathe. 800 million, the Ouyang shouted back. 950 million. 980. 1 billion. Gao Jiejun's voice cracked with the strain. The number hit the room like a sledgehammer. 1 billion. Everyone stood frozen, the weight of that sum crushing the very air around us. The silence in the mall was so heavy you could hear a pin drop. The shock was just too much. 10 billion. It was a staggering number, a sum that could change 1,000 lives. Are there any higher bids? The staff member asked, his voice cracking. He looked at me, sweat beading on his forehead. Okay, now, we asked the seller, do you accept this bid? I'm not selling, I said. The staff member froze. He blinked, thinking he'd misheard me. Wait, what? He leaned in, giving me a chance to correct myself. I said it already. I repeated, my high-pitched voice amplified by the microphone for everyone to hear. I'm not selling. The crowd exploded in a mix of confusion and disbelief. Why would a kid turn down $1 billion? Gao Jiejun, the CEO who had placed the bid, looked like he was about to burst a blood vessel. He felt played. He had come all this way to secure a treasure for his grandfather, and now he was being stood up by a 5-year-old. He turned to his bodyguards and whispered a few sharp words. Unfortunately, the staff member announced, his voice filled with regret, the seller has declined. There is no deal. The audience groaned. They wanted to see the final transaction, the moment history was made. But the drama wasn't over. Move. Out of the way. A dozen burly bodyguards in black suits shoved through the crowd, heading straight for me. They knocked the mall security guards aside like they were nothing. Step back if you know what's good for you, one of the thugs growled. He stopped 10 meters away from me and gave a cruel smirk. Hey kid, our boss wants to have a little chat. Why don't you come with us? I didn't answer. I stood my ground, my small fists tightening as a surge of violent spiritual energy began to swirl around my knuckles. I was ready to break some bones. You dare, a cold, sharp voice rang out. My sister, Wang Siki, stepped in front of me. Her presence was like a wall of ice. I am Wang Siki, who thinks they are brave enough to touch my brother. Her voice carried a weight that crushed the bodyguard's momentum. The crowd started whispering frantically. Wang Siki, the CEO of the Wang Group. The seventh lady of the demon capital Wang family. The goddess of the business world. So that kid really is her brother. People started pulling out their phones, snapping photos, and recording everything. Suddenly, a massive wave of professional security guards, our security, flooded the area, forming a human shield around us. The Gao family, my sister hissed, her eyes locking onto Gao Jiejun in the stands. It seems your family is sliding into irrelevance. Trying to rob the Wang family in broad daylight. You want to make us your enemy? Does your grandfather know you're out here acting like a common thief? Gao Jiejun's face turned bright red. He was humiliated. The crowd was already posting videos online with titles like, Ice Queen protects her adorable brother. Seeing he had no move left, Gao Jiejun turned tail and stormed out with his men. The danger was gone. My sister signaled for 2 chairs to be brought out, and we sat down as if nothing had happened. There was still one small piece of raw stone left to cut. She nodded to the master, and the blade started spinning again. When the final layer fell away, a flash of pure, vibrant green blinded everyone in the room. My sister stood up, her jaw dropping. The appraiser's hands were shaking so hard, he almost dropped his magnifying glass. This is the King of Jade, the stone cutter whispered, tears streaming down his face. Imperial emerald green. The old man looked like he could die happy right then and there. He had spent his whole life working with stones just to see something this perfect. Part of me felt bad for him. I almost wanted to give it to him. After all, I could just go pick out another one whenever I wanted. But my sister knew the value. She immediately shut down any talk of an auction. Surrounded by 50 bodyguards, we carried our 2 massive treasures out of the shop and back toward the cars. Behind us, the mall descended into chaos. People were fighting over the remaining raw stones, hoping to strike gold like I did. They were going to be disappointed. I had already picked the place clean. Every single stone left in that shop was worthless trash. As we reached the exit, my spiritual sense flickered. I felt a familiar, unpleasant aura nearby. I stopped in my tracks. What is it, Xiaoko? My sister asked. Sister, can we go over there for a second? I pointed toward a dark alleyway. I had a plan. If that bully from earlier wanted to mess with my sister, he needed a permanent lesson. We walked around the corner with our small army of bodyguards. In the alley, a group of punks were leaning against a beat-up van with its license plate covered, smoking and laughing. Ma Yulong was right in the middle of them. Once we grab him, Ma Yulong was saying, puffing out his chest, I'll train him to be obedient. We won't just get drinking money. We'll be trading this van for a supercar once that rich lady starts paying up. They were so busy dreaming of easy money they didn't notice us standing there. And who exactly are you planning to kidnap? I asked. Isn't it obvious? Ma Yulong snapped without looking. He froze. He turned his head and saw my sister's icy stare, backed by 50 massive men in suits. Teach these pieces of trash a lesson, my sister commanded. The bodyguards swarmed. The alley filled with the sounds of screams and heavy thuds. Ma Yulong ended up face down on the pavement, motionless. He'd be lucky if he left the hospital in 6 months. Find out what school he goes to, my sister told her lead guard. Contact the principal. A student like this doesn't belong on a campus. Make sure he never steps foot in a classroom again. I stuck my tongue out at the pile of groaning bullies. That's what happens when you play with fire. Once the jade was safely sent back to the estate, we got into the car. My sister finally dropped her Ice Queen, act and pulled me into a tight hug, squishing my cheeks. "My amazing brother. We made so much money today," she squealed. "How much do you have in your account now?" I checked my phone. 27,339,974, I mumbled. "My little treasure is so talented it's scary," she laughed, planting a big kiss on my forehead. I struggled to wiggle out of her grip. She smelled like expensive perfume and flowers, but it was still embarrassing. She raised an eyebrow, looking a bit disappointed that I wasn't being more affectionate. She was probably already planning to make me sleep in her room tonight to bond. I felt a sudden shiver down my spine. I was definitely being hunted. She checked her phone and saw a message from our other sister, Wang Wenya. "I'm heading to the capital to move my professorship to the Demon City. Don't worry about picking me up, asterisk." My sister smirked and typed back, "I never said I was picking you up anyway. Don't hurry back, asterisk." We grabbed a quick lunch and headed back to the villa. My sister was itching to process the jade. She locked the Imperial Emerald in the safe and laid out the Emperor Blue Light jade on the table, her eyes gleaming with excitement. This was only the beginning. My sister was already busy planning what to do with the jade. She wanted to craft 8 pendants or bracelets as gifts for all the sisters. She looked genuinely happy, but I had my own treasures to worry about. I snuck into my room, clutching the black gold tightly against my chest. This hunk of metal was worth more to me than any mountain of emeralds. It was heavy and cold. Based on its size, I could definitely forge a flying sword and still have some left over. Once I reached the late stages of chi refining, I'd be able to soar through the sky. I stared at the ore and giggled like a fool. I had no idea that my peaceful night was about to be interrupted. While I was dreaming of flying, the Gao family was already digging into my past. Gao Jiejun, one of the most powerful young masters in the Demon City, sat in his study with his legs crossed. My sudden appearance had ruined his plans. He knew more about the Wang family's missing child than most people did. He knew that the forces behind my kidnapping 5 years ago were far more dangerous than anyone in this city could imagine. He called in his secretary and scribbled a secret letter. He sealed it and told her to deliver it to a contact in the capital immediately. But before she could leave, he pulled her into his lap. He was frustrated, and he needed a distraction. Back at the Wang villa, I was just about to shove the black gold into my alchemy furnace when the door flew open. I jumped and spun around. It was my sister, Siki. She leaned against the doorframe, her eyes scanning every inch of the room. She asked me what I was doing and why I looked so nervous. I stammered, making up some excuse about how much I liked the design of the furnace. She didn't look like she believed me, but she didn't push it. She had other plans. She told me she wanted to improve our sibling bond. To create a good family atmosphere, she decided I was sleeping in her room tonight. I stared at her, confused. Was I really that handsome? Did sisters and aunts find me that irresistible? I flatly refused. I told her I was 5 years old and perfectly capable of sleeping alone. If I stayed in her room, I wouldn't be able to cultivate it all. She pouted and begged, promising it would only be for one night. Eventually, I gave in. I followed her up to the 3rd floor. Her room was even bigger than mine, decorated in warm yellows with a thick, fluffy carpet. It felt incredibly cozy. We both changed into our pajamas. She wore loose cream-colored silk, while I was stuck in a set of cute dinosaur onesies. As we laid down, she started stroking my face. She asked if I knew why I was stolen as a baby. I shook my head. I knew nothing. She started to explain. It all started with our grandfather. Our parents, Wang Yuehao and Chun Hui, weren't originally from the Demon City. Our father was the 2nd young master of the legendary Wang family in the capital. He was a genius, but he fell in love with our mother, a commoner. In those high society families, marriage is about business, not love. I was listening with wide eyes, waiting for the juicy details, when the talking stopped. I looked up. She was fast asleep. I felt so frustrated. Leaving a story halfway through is like eating half a meal or drinking water but never quenching your thirst. I sighed and tried to slide out of the bed. I still needed to do my daily cultivation. But as soon as I moved, her arms snapped shut around me. She pulled me back into a tight hug, pinning me against her. If I didn't have my spiritual strength, she probably would have crushed my ribs. She smelled like a fresh spring morning. Up close, Her face was breathtaking. Perfect skin, long lashes, and a soft expression she never showed in public. I gave up on escaping. I let out a long yawn and snuggled into her arms, falling into a deep, dreamless sleep. The next morning, the sun poked through the curtains and hit me right in the eyes. It was blinding. I rubbed my eyes and sat up, stretching my tiny limbs. I felt incredibly refreshed after a full night of rest. I looked over at my sister, wondering if she was ready to finish the story.